feature presentation.
He'll be fine on the mountain.
JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
Line drive right field, base hit. South Carolina wins the College World Series. Watson, touchdown. Hunter Renfrow. He got him, and it's all over. Coastal Carolina rules the roost. They win the championship. And South Carolina has won the national championship.
The Citadel baseball team has done it again, but this time the Bulldogs beat one of the top teams in the country. They are giant killers. Get the ball to Bennett. He does.
Gamecocks are in the Final Four.
All right, greetings and a good Friday afternoon, and welcome aboard the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online, and very proudly presented by Motley Rice, causes not just cases, MotleyRice.com. Driven by Stokes Volkswagen, StokesVW.com. Make sure they soup up your tailgate this tailgate season, football season it is, of course, StokesVW.com for the all-new 2021 Atlas Cross Sport. JB and Darren, follow us on social media, at JB and Goldwater, individually at Sports Media JB, and at Darren Goldwater. The Share Healthcare chat lines are active already, and you can jump in as well via YouTube, Facebook. Send us a note, Twitter. Darren will make sure he gets that up there as well. You can text us 843-321-8893, and we'll make you a part of our conversation, which will last until 2 o'clock this afternoon. Between now and then, Raphael Esparza will join us at 12:30, as he does on Fridays with MyBookie.ag. We'll look at the betting lines this weekend in football and baseball. Both the NLCS and the ALCS are set to go. We're going to get to that in a little bit. Obviously, chaos from last night's check swing to end the Giants-Dodgers game was a horrible call, and we'll get to that here coming up in just a few minutes. JC Shurburtt, Michael Flint in the Big Gamecock Preview Show, very proudly presented by Motley Rice at 1 o'clock this afternoon, and served by Patrick Davis's Whiskey Jam. Make sure you've tried Whiskey Jam. Make sure you've tried Whiskey Jam. Make sure you've tried Whiskey Jam if you haven't. I'm telling you, it will change your life, especially the blackberry. Don't listen to Patrick. The blackberry's the best. They're both really good. I'm just kidding, but blackberry certainly is my favorite. Hall of Fame inductions last night at the University of South Carolina. We're going to touch on that. And we're also waiting on some news to come out of Columbia about Dawn Staley. There is a new contract, and I hear it is a dinger of a contract for Dawn that at some point in time will be released by the university, maybe shortly. So as soon as we get that, we're going to pass it along to you. But first, we're going to pass along Darren Goldwater to all of you. What's up, man?
I saw someone quote tweeted. Cloninger didn't want to put it out. Someone else did that what was on the table for the meeting this morning was going to be a Dawn Staley contract extension. And someone quote tweeted that and said, the correct way to do this is to bring a wheelbarrow of money to the table. They're right. So I hope that's what this is. I mean, if this is going to be an extension, this is one where you hope Dawn is locked up for a long time and is paid as well as humanly possible from South Carolina because she deserves it. And then one other side note, because we're not talking high school football day. That's not what this is about. I am excited about the game tonight, though. There's a rivalry brewing between Hanahan and Oceanside, and the atmosphere tonight, if you want to flip away from Clemson for a second, should look pretty good. And it'll look like Clemson. Hanahan wears orange, so you might get confused, but it'll be a good atmosphere.
It will be a good atmosphere. Whoever said the wheelbarrow, if my source is correct, you're going to need a line of dump trucks. If my source is correct. So we'll keep our eyes peeled on that. And I mean a line of dump trucks. So we'll see. But Dawn Staley is set to receive an extension and a raise at the University of South Carolina. Well, we got to get to the 2-minute drill because that's what we do every Friday to start off the JB and Goldwater show. LA moves on. Boston and Houston have already moved on. They're set to go tonight at 8:07 on Fox. It's a 2 TV night. If you're in the Palmetto State, baseball Clemson. We'll get there in a minute. Chris Sale and Framber Valdez will start for the Astros at Minute Maid Park in game one of that one. Tomorrow night, the Dodgers and the Braves will start game one of their series. Max Fried, from what I understand, is going to get the ball. I have not seen a starter yet for LA. If there is one, Darren, correct me, but I haven't seen it.
Max Scherzer was hopeful that he was going to be the guy. The Dodgers were hopeful, but now that is up in the air.
Yeah, because he pitched last night. Nathan Eovaldi, Luis Garcia in game 2 at 4:20 on Fox tomorrow from Minute Maid Park in the ALCS. High school football, as Darren mentioned, 7:30 tonight. If you're in the area, MyTV Charleston has got OCA and Hanahan, and I agree with Darren. I think it's going to be a really good one. And tonight in college football, Clemson and Syracuse at 7 on ESPN from the Carrier Dome. Other games include Marshall and North Texas. 10:30 tonight, ESPN California is at Oregon. Oregon's less than a 2-touchdown favorite against the Cal Bears. Something's off there.
Joe Moore, you don't know if he's going to be there calling plays yet.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Darren. That's why you're here. You know more than I do. San Diego State, San Jose State late tonight as well, 10:30 on the CBS Sports Network. If you happened to catch the NFL last night, it was interesting. It was shocking, as a matter of fact. The Eagles were even in the game. They could do nothing on offense. They ended up tightening that sucker up, but they would fall 28-22 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Tom Brady and the crew from South Florida improved to 5-1. The Eagles 2-4, and now they've traded away Zach Ertz. He's off to Arizona. We lost. He's out of here. We need help in the secondary. And that is your 2-minute drill to lead off this Friday afternoon. Again, 843-321-8893 if you'd like to send us a note. Looks like Ryan, Craig, Adam, Steven, Paul, Hellfire breakout time, Clemson 37, Syracuse 17. Fear the Tiger. We're going to get to that in just a little bit. Hey, David, and this morning, I don't know what that means, but I was going to draw. Oh, I got you. There you go. Yeah,
the Dodgers Giants.
I think he's talking about Zach Ertz. Yeah. Again, waiting on Dawn Staley News. We're going to get our weekend picks here in just a little while as well. But let's start last night with that check swing that ended the National League Championship Series. I am, Darren knows quite well, I am an old school cat when it comes to baseball. I don't like all the technology. I really wish we could go back to the old days where coaches just came out and argued about everything and kicked dirt all over the place, got tossed out of games and stuff like that. But we're never going to be able to go back to the pre-review era of sports. And I'm not even advocating for review in a check swing. You could probably do it with like infrared technology or something. Did the bat cross the plate and this, that, and the other? I'm not going to go down that road because that's almost like going down the robot umpire road. I'm not doing that. Umpiring is a part of the game, and I hope it always stays a part of the game. That being said, I am all for holding people accountable, and I'm all for a lot of unwritten rules in this sport. And there's a lot of people out there. My dear friend and yours, Bobby Harton over at ESPN, says all the time, "Screw the unwritten rules." Yeah. No, you don't end a championship series with a close call like that on a check swing. You just don't do it. Number one, it was a bad call. I mean, everybody saw it. And if he absolutely goes, and there's no doubt about it, you got to make the call. I get it. He didn't have to make that call. That was a horrible call. It was a horrible way to end the season for the Giants. Gabe Kapler was exemplary after the game. He was a stand-up human being. I would have been tossing tables across that room if I was Gabe Kapler, but he didn't do it. And the Dodgers advance 2-1 over their rival San Fran. So it's a rematch of the NLCS last year, Darren. But I thought that the call was putrid. I think that umpire needs to be severely punished. And that was a shame to see that a season come to an end like that. Not that it wouldn't have. You know what? The very next pitch, he might have been out. And so there is no guarantee. But at the end of the day, an umpire ended the game on a bad call, and I can't stand that.
It stinks. If you're a Giants fan, that's a tough way to go. If you're a fan of the game, like you said, you don't want to see a game end like that. But the way I see that, the at-bat was going to end somehow like that at some point. I don't think Max Scherzer was going to give up a tying run in that situation. I mean, that's what Max Scherzer is made for. That's exactly who Max Scherzer is. You wish that call wasn't made, It's not the reason the Giants lost. You don't want that to end the game. I understand the frustration. I think Ron Darling did a great job calling the game. He's a fantastic analyst. Really does a good job on Mets games as well, and does a fairly neutral job on Mets games, which is why I think he's so good. He's very honest and sees it the right way, and he was on it. I mean, he called it as he saw it. He didn't think he went when it happened, and when he saw the replay, he quickly, oh no, no, that's not a good call, and it wasn't. But the Dodgers, many have felt, are going to be the team that will represent the West or represent the National League. They are heavy favorites over the Braves. The Braves have the lowest odds of any of the 4 teams left to win the championship. And I think it was going to end that way anyway. So I'm not all up in arms about it. I understand the frustration. Officials and referees do not cost teams games. I always say that. I stand by that. This did not cost the Giants the game. It's just a unfortunate way that it ended.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say that it cost them the game because we don't know how it would have ended had that call not been made. I mean, that's the unknown part of it. I will back you up on the Max Scherzer thing. Josh Hader also hadn't allowed to run 2.5 months, and Freddie Freeman took him yard. Mm-hmm. So we don't know that the next pitch also couldn't have left the yard. And
Hader has a history of it. Remember, that happened 2 years ago in the postseason as well. Max Scherzer in the postseason is he's a different dude. That's why it wouldn't shock me if he actually starts tomorrow. I don't think he will, but it wouldn't shock me.
No, it wouldn't shock me either. But at the end of the day, a bad call ended the game, not Max Scherzer's execution and not that guy at the plate doing something wrong. I mean, he held his swing. It was crystal clear, and everybody on the planet knows it. And you know what? That guy knows it. There's no way he doesn't know it. He knows he made a bad call, and he's got to live with it. He should be punished, though. He should absolutely be punished, and Major League Baseball should make sure that that's known because, you know, I think fans. I'm gonna
stop you there. I don't think he should be punished because it's a bad call. It's a judgment call. He missed it. He did. He missed it. I'm sure he knows now after seeing the replay that he missed it. But it's a judgment call. It's a split-second judgment call. What do you want to do? Bench him for a year because he made a bad call?
Bench him for a season. Is that group calling any more in the postseason? Do we know about that?
I don't know. I do not.
I don't either. I mean, if they are, he shouldn't call a couple of games. He should lose some cash on that. I mean, you can't do that. You can't do that. As a player, that team had played 167 games. 167 games, and their season ended on a bad call. I can't stomach that. If he strikes out on the next pitch, which very well could have happened, I'm not going to assume it would have happened. You know what? The season ended. You got beat by your rival, and it's over. The guy hits a home run. It's tied. But my point is, which I've already made, I can't stomach a guy making that bad of a call in that type of situation to end the season for these guys who've been working since February. That makes sense to me. If they're going to be punished by that, he needs to be punished as well.
I see what you're saying. I understand the frustration. And it's unfortunate for the Giants. It really is, right? I mean, they won the division. They beat the Dodgers by a game. They held off the Dodgers. And it stinks that it ends that way. But if a coach makes a bad call, he's not disciplined. If a player makes a bad play, like you're not going to it sucks. It sucks that it happened that way. But you know what? That is also the way it goes. That's what you teach your kids about sports, right? I mean, sometimes breaks are going to go your way. Sometimes they're not going to go your way. It stinks that it ended that way. It absolutely does. It was the wrong call.
Yeah, bad call.
Wrong calls happen. Wrong calls happen. And if I was a Giants fan, I'd be more upset. If this happened to the Nationals, I wouldn't be saying to punish that guy. I have always maintained this position with officials and referees and umps, and I'm not going to change for this because it was unfortunate. Yeah. It happens.
Yeah. I don't think that these guys can continue to get better. They're already under a microscope, and replay and review has put it there over the last 20 years. I mean, as you know, Darren, you work in TV, you've got so many cameras and camera angles and all different types of accessibility to pretty much every sport that's nationally televised now. So it's not like all of a sudden, I've said this before, and I probably need to be a little bit more careful with my words. Oh my God, officials have gotten terrible. Well, I don't know that that's necessarily true. I think they've always been, you know, average at best.
Probably better than they were. You just see more.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, I'm sure there are literally hundreds of thousands of calls over the years, hundreds of thousands of calls in all sports added up that you just don't know were missed because you didn't have the angles to look at them and be able to go back and do that. But again, with that being said, replay now, it when I say the word punish, I don't mean this like we're going to drop the hammer. There's a lot of things that players in all sports used to get away with before without replay that now they don't anymore because of replay. And it should be the same thing with umpires. They've gotten away with that at times for over the years, but now you have replay to show that these guys screwed up. Then they need to be held accountable for that. I like Ryan. I think that's very well said. And I would use the word umpire here because it's baseball, but his comment is best officials know the situation. He let himself get in the way of that. I like that. I've never been a big umpire guy myself. I've been thrown out of a couple of games in my time, and probably rightfully so, but those guys were wrong, and I made sure they knew that. So, if he would have, I don't have a problem with a game or a season ending on a check swing. Like, that's not the issue. It's the missed call. So I don't know what's going to happen, but it sucks how it ended. I did think the Dodgers would win. I kind of mentioned that yesterday. I said, I don't know, but I guess I'll lean to LA. I just like their pitching a little bit better. And now the Braves get them at home to start the NLCS. So Atlanta's going to be rocking tomorrow night at Truist Park, and they owe LA something. And you know what? As good as LA is, I got a feeling the Braves are going to give it to them. I mean, sometimes it just kind of feels right. This team's already been through it, the Braves. They've been through it. They've won 4 straight divisions. Last year, they were so close. That has not left them being one game shy of getting to the World Series, and now they get to maybe give the Dodgers a dose of their own medicine. I know this. The atmosphere in Atlanta is going to be a hell of a lot better than Dodger Stadium. There's some, Dodgers fans are either die hard or they suck. You know what I mean? Like, how many times have you turned on the TV and looked at Dodger Stadium and it's like maybe 3/4 full in the championship game? And you're like, where is everybody? There's 50 million people, it feels like, in LA. But go Braves. Sweep them. They won't sweep them.
However long this thing plays out, right? I don't know. I'm not going to make a prediction on the number of games. Whenever this series is over, if the Braves win it, that will surprise me more than anything I will see Saturday in college football. If the Braves win the series, it will surprise me more than anything collectively that I see this weekend. I'll even lump Sunday into it, and Saturday and Sunday in football.
All right.
I don't see it happening.
I hope you're shocked.
I know you do.
12:18 on this Friday afternoon. If you'd like to check in and comment, do so. The Share Healthcare chat lines, they are open. Don't get stuck with big medical bills with a healthcare program that doesn't fit who you are and what you need. More options, more affordable, user-friendly. ShareHealthcare.com. ShareHealthcare.com. If you would like to check that out and be able to save some cash and make sure that your family is taken care of, please do so. ShareHealthcare.com. All right, we got some picks to get to coming up here in just a little bit. Pretty neat scene last night with the Hall of Fame for South Carolina. Their inductees that were punched their ticket into the Athletics Hall of Fame up there in Columbia, South Carolina. All the attention was around Michael Roth and Connor Shaw, and probably rightfully so. I would say. It's funny though, as time goes on, people sometimes forget about others, and Kim Hudson-Williams was inducted last night. Dr. Mike McGee, former athletics director who hired everybody, Ray Tanner, Lou Holtz, Steve Spurrier, all those guys inducted. Nancy Wilson inducted. Scotty Ward from men's basketball, Brantley Southers. Congratulations to all of them. Mike Duroff from football as well. But John Abraham was inducted last night. And when I was a kid, I've been watching Carolina football since before I was even born.
I believe that.
Heard a lot of words in the womb that I've learned from my dad. But when I was a kid, that his final couple years at South Carolina were dismal for the program. They were 1-21, 1-10, and 98. Everybody remembers that. And then the 2011 inaugural season of Coach Holtz in 99. But that defense was pretty good. And John Abraham was a star. You know, in the 90s for South Carolina football, you know, because the 90s was a terrible decade for the Gamecocks. It was awful. But sparingly here and there, they'd have some big wins, and they had some players that are legend. They just never were able to get all those guys on the same team. But John Abraham is one of the best defensive ends to ever play in the NFL, in addition to the University of South Carolina and the SEC. He was some kind of special. I mean, this guy was some kind of special. And I've had a chance to talk to him before. He's a funny dude. He talks really fast, and you gotta pick a word out here and there, try to figure out what he's trying to tell you. But he was a hell of a football player, and I just thought that was long overdue for this guy who spent I can't even remember how long now in the NFL, 15 years or something ridiculous. I mean, he was in the league forever, and he always looked the same, and he always produced the same. And so, for anybody that saw the Hall of Fame inductions last night, Connor Shaw, Michael Roth getting all the headlines, deservedly so. Very recent athletes. Connor Shaw and Michael Roth have a lot of accolades. Michael, he's got a couple rings and all that type of stuff. Best quarterback in the history of the program. Connery's still there. But don't forget about guys like John Abraham. I mean, this guy, he was literally a light when there was not a flicker of hope in the Gamecock football program, and then he goes in the first round and on to have one of the best careers in the history of the NFL for a defensive end. I think I saw Craig put up the number a minute ago. And yeah, I'm pretty sure it was 133 or 134, somewhere 135 sacks basically in his career in the NFL. What? Are you kidding me? It's remarkable. It's remarkable. So congratulations to him.
I remember him as an NFL guy. I mean, I wasn't watching the Gamecocks growing up, so I remember him as an NFL guy. And when Craig just threw that up, I went right to the stats here. And yeah, 133 and a half sacks, forced 47 fumbles. I mean, you got Pro Bowl, first team All-Pro all over the place. He was a starter in the league for basically his entire career in the league, which was, about 15 years.
Yeah.
His last year, he only played a game. So maybe 14 years in the league. He was a starter and a dominant defensive presence in the league.
Oh, he was awesome.
His mark has been made. It's a dessert. If you go on, regardless of how you perform in college, and obviously he was good in college, if you go on to a career like that professionally, you damn well deserve to be recognized in your college's Ring of Honor or Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Yeah, he was. I'm telling you, man, he was really amazing. He was an amazing football player. Back in the 90s, my favorite players went from Tony Watkins and Lee Wiggins to Brandon Bennett to Deuce Staley to John Abraham. Like that was my lineage of guys that I just fell in love with as a kid. In succession there before we turned the page into the 2000s and finally started winning, unlike they're doing this year. But hopefully they'll do it this weekend because Vanderbilt's coming up, and we've got the Big Gamecock Preview Show coming up as well at 1:00 with JC Shurburtt and Michael Flint, both joining us here on our program. All right, it's time to make some picks. Darren and I, as we always do in the first section, will get a few of these in. We'll have Raphael coming up. We'll look at a bunch of the betting lines, and then we'll introduce some of these selections in the final hour as well with JC and with Michael. I think I've got 7 games for them to pick. They should. Michael moves. I'm going to have to speed JC up today. He is some kind of slow when he makes these from time to time. Real quick here in the NFL, Darren, coming up on Sunday at 4:25, Vegas and Denver on CBS from Mile High. The Raiders 3-2, the Broncos 3-2. The Broncos are 4-point favorites, and the Raiders don't have a John Gruden. They do have a Rich Bisaccia who played football at the University of South Carolina. His father, a former NFL coach as well, and now he's the head man. He was very emotional about it this week. Do the Raiders go to Denver and get a win?
They do. I think part of that line is all of the turmoil surrounding Las Vegas right now, but they're a better football team than the Broncos are, and this rallies them. This brings them together. Carr had a lot of things to say about Gruden and what was said. I think this brings them together. I think they go beat the Broncos.
I agree. I think they win the game. I think was it 4? I think they cover that 4, and they go to 4-2. The Cowboys are in New England this weekend. CBS also a 4:25 kick on Sunday. They're 3-point favorites against the Patriots. How about this? Patriots 2-3, 0-3 at home. They're about to be 0-4 because Dallas is going to win that one.
I agree. What scares me about this pick sheet, I've got a lot of road teams circled on here. A lot of them.
Yeah.
It scares me. Dallas and Vegas are two of them.
Yeah. I'm with you. I've got a fair share myself, including this one. Kansas City and your Washington football team, Redskins, whatever they are, they're 6.5-point dogs at home. We do know that. Chiefs are 1-1 away from their home, and I think they go on the road and beat Washington.
Chiefs have got issues they got to clean up. They got issues they got to clean up, and they're turning the ball over too much. They're putting up points, but turning it over too much. On a day when Washington will honor Sean Taylor against a team that's turning it over too much, Washington finds a way.
All right. Go, Darren. This one is a home team that I've got winning. It's the Panthers and Minnesota. Vikings are favorited in this game for a couple of reasons. Although the Panthers are still waiting to get Stephon in there, I still like that defense. I think they win at home and they get their 4th win of the year.
I agree. I'm on this Panthers bandwagon. I mean, I'm not going to say I'm a Panthers fan, but I do enjoy watching them, and I don't enjoy watching the Vikings very much. I like this Panthers team a little bit, and I think they're the better team.
There you go. All right, in college football, leading off on, we'll pick the Clemson game later on with Michael. But leading off tomorrow's slate at noon on Fox Sports 1, a Big Ten matchup here. Michigan is at Indiana, and Michigan State is at Indiana. Thank you. 10th ranked Michigan State, that is. They're only 4.5-point favorites on the road against the Hoosiers. That feels kind of suckerish to me. I do like what Indiana's done, but I like Michigan State more. I think they go on the road and win.
The thing that's making me a little nervous, there are a lot of people on Indiana here. Josh Pate is one of them. Despite the fact that Michael Penix, I don't think is going to play, backup there is pretty good. This is one of those games that's kind of sneaky under the radar. There's no way I'm going against Kenneth Walker right now. I'd say he's my Heisman number 1. I'm taking Michigan State. This scares me if I'm a Spartans fan, though.
Agreed. Totally. They still win, though. They go to 6-0 if they win. Oklahoma State is at Texas. Can the Horns bounce back? They were heartbroken last week. This is a big moment for Steve Sarkisian. Can he get his guys up and going? They got 12th ranked OK State. A lot of teams just haven't totally bought into OK State. A lot of people, I should say, across the country. You might want to, though. They're ranked 12th against the 25th ranked Horns on the road. They are 4-point dogs, though. Does Texas bounce back?
Raise your hand if you were surprised this week when you were looking at the games. You're like, Oklahoma State's 12th and they're undefeated? Really?
Yeah.
Me. That I was one of those people. Texas bounces back and they win this game.
Yeah, I think this is a really good game. I think it's going to be a really good game. And I agree with you. I do think that Texas bounces back, and I think they get a win at home. And I think that's another sign of improvement in the program with Steve Sarkisian. 5-2, one shy of bowl eligibility. A&M is at Missouri. 21st ranked A&M because they beat Bama. This is like the classic week for A&M where you go, oh man, what happened? Riding high, kind of falling off a little bit, and that's going to happen early in the game. But they're much better than Missouri, and they will win the game up there in Columbia.
Yeah, this is one of those, like, if you're just picking straight up like we are, it's pretty easy to go A&M here. The thing I'm going to watch here, I think they ride that momentum a little bit. I don't expect as much of a letdown as you. I think Calzada took a step forward. I think it shows you the coaching under Jimbo Fisher. I think it shows you why he's worth the bazillion dollars that they're paying him, that he's been able to take this backup and get him to a spot where he played outstanding against Alabama. Granted, defense is going to be one of their weaknesses. Yep. I'm thinking Texas A&M rides that wave and pummels Missouri.
Yeah, I don't misunderstand me. I think it's a slow start for the Aggies tomorrow. But it'll be a fast finish. Yeah, they win. 19th ranked BYU is at Baylor. Such an interesting football game, boys and girls. BYU just took their first loss of the season. Upset at Boise. I knew I should have picked the Broncos last weekend on the blue turf. Do they get beat again? Baylor is a 5.5-point favorite at home. Their only losses at Oklahoma State, and I like them at home. You know what? I was kind of on that BYU train for a little while. Baylor defensively has been pretty good this year. BYU comes to town. Baylor wins, though. Baylor wins.
I'm with you. So we've only differed on one of these picks. Washington, Kansas City is the only one that we differed on, and that might be because of some personal bias on one of our ends. But yeah, I'm with you. I think Baylor is the better football team, and Baylor wins.
Raise your hand if you thought this game was going to mean nothing for the ACC this year. Miami and North Carolina, 3:30 on the ACC network. It was everybody's preseason must watch. Whoever wins that, probably going to win the Coastal. Miami's got problems. Derek King is out for the year. You just don't know who North Carolina is going to be from week to week. We do know this week they're 7.5-point favorites at home. Miami guys, they're really not that good. They're not well coached, and North Carolina will win because of those reasons. And Sam Howell's right arm in Chapel Hill.
The best player on the field is the quarterback for North Carolina, and with two teams that not going in the right direction, the best player on the field is going to elevate his team. I don't know if they win by 7, but North Carolina wins it.
In addition to that, raise your right hand or left, depending on what hand you are, if you thought that this game was more meaningful in the standings than that one. Pitt and Virginia Tech. They don't like each other. We do know that. ESPN2's got it at 3:30. Pittsburgh's a 5-point favorite at Lane Stadium. No. Upset there based on the point spread. Virginia Tech wins at home.
Okay, we're going to differ here. I love what I'm seeing in Pittsburgh here, man. Kenny Pickett is needing to be talked about more. I mean, It's more about him, and it's more about this Pitt offense than it is about their defense, and it's kind of a reversal of the story for typical Pat Narduzzi teams. By the way, he shouted out James Franklin and agreed with him, and there's no love lost between Pittsburgh and Penn State. I think Pittsburgh goes to Lane Stadium and beats Virginia Tech. Absolutely.
Got some breaking news here. Dawn Staley, before we pick any more games, breaking news out of Columbia. Dawn Staley her new contract is expected to be approved, and it has been approved. Ray Tanner has presented a proposal of extension and a raise, and it is substantial. Dawn Staley will earn $2.9 million this season instead of the $1.8 million on her previous deal. The Board of Trustees, is still needing to approve this later on this afternoon, although that is expected, and the remainder of the details will be out in just a little bit as well. But $2.9 million and a $100,000 raise each season. This will run through the 2027-2028 basketball season. So by the time that is over, $3.5 million is what Dawn Staley will make in the final year of her deal. The current contract expires in 2025, topping out at $2.1 million annually. So the expiration date of both contracts has a $1.4 million difference between them. Dawn Staley will be the highest paid coach in the SEC, and I'll have to take a peek at Gino's, but I've got a feeling she's right there alongside Gino Auriemma as one of the top 2 paid coaches in college basketball on the women's side. Congratulations to Dawn Staley, who's now been extended at the University of South Carolina. Unbelievable contract there. All right, Darren, we're going to step aside. We still have a few more games that we'll pick with Raphael, and then plenty more to come in the Big Gamecock Preview Show alongside Michael Flint and JC Shurburtt. It's Friday on the JB and Goldwater Show. Very proudly presented by Motley Rice, driven by Stokes Volkswagen, and served by Whiskey Jam. Hang tight. We'll be right back.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road. You know what happens when you sell record numbers of new vehicles? That's right, we take in record numbers of local trades. Despite what the news is saying, quality pre-owned vehicles really aren't that hard to find. You just need to know where to look. Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate and on the web at stokesvw.com. We've got over 1,200 pre-owned cars, trucks, SUVs, and all at a fraction of the price when new. Every vehicle has been inspected and reconditioned, many with the balance of factory warranty. Best of all, at Stokes Volkswagen, you don't need perfect credit to get approved for a quality pre-owned vehicle, and we'll take any trade in any condition, even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. Don't forget, we'll buy your car even if you don't buy a car from us. You're going to love our pre-owned selection, I guarantee it. So come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate or stokesvw.com.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Negative trade equity financed a new loan, subject to lender approval.
People don't like to get stuck in traffic, stuck in the mud, stuck at work. And 2 others you probably don't think much about: stuck with a big medical bill or stuck with a healthcare program that doesn't fit who you are. Experience true medical freedom with Share Healthcare. More affordable, more options, user-friendly, and biblically sound. You can join right now. Explore a new way to show you care with Share Healthcare. Join us today at sharehealthcare.com. sharehealthcare.com.
Wando Power Equipment, the trusted home of Hustler zero-turn residential and commercial mowers. There is nobody more trusted in South Carolina than our friends from Wando Power Equipment. They've been providing elite commercial and residential service for over 30 years. Landscape Services have turned to their selection of Hustler zero-turn mowers like the Raptor. Bigger, stronger, faster, and the most durable Raptor Hustler has ever designed. Located on Daniel Island and online at wandopower.com. Wando Power Equipment, owned by the Price family, the home of Hustler zero-turn mowers, rentals, service, and specializing in family and friendship.
You hear me talk about Dog and Duck all the time, and there's no other place I'm going to watch my college and NFL than the Dog and Duck. They have 3 locations, Bell Hall, Park West, and Clements Ferry Road. They have specials all football season long, like $12 pitchers of their own D2 brew, $5 pints of Sierra Nevada, weekly pick'em sheets with prizes, and the best wings in town, bar none. For all your football, college, and NFL, the Dog and Duck, Clements Ferry Road, Bell Hall, and Park West.
Motley Rice LLC is a law firm with international reach, but it hasn't lost its Carolina roots. The Motley Rice team fights every day for people harmed by products including asbestos and talc exposure, medical drugs and devices, and also catastrophic injuries and auto recalls, including dangerous Takata airbags. Motley Rice is headquartered in Mount Pleasant at 28 Bridgeside Boulevard. Visit motleyrice.com. Thank you, Motley Rice, for supporting the JB and Goldwater Show and the Big Gamecock Preview Show.
The JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online.
I'm gonna keep on the run. I'm gonna have me some fun. If it costs me my very last dime. If I wind up broke, well, I'll always remember that I had a swinging time. I'm gonna give it up.
All right, 12:37. Welcome back to the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes of Volkswagen on this Friday afternoon. All right, let me get this release out here that just popped into my inbox, and then I'll give you some nuggets to go along with that. Raphael, bear with me for a second. Dawn Staley has been awarded the highest contract in the SEC for women's basketball coaches, officially from the university. This is a 7-year, $22.4 million deal that will secure her with Carolina until the 2027-2028 season. Under the new contract, her base salary will be $1 million per year with outside compensation starting at $1.9 million per season, and an escalation clause in there of $100,000 per year thereafter. This year's, as I mentioned earlier, compensation begins at $2.9 million. The final year will top at $3.5 million, and additional performance compensation opportunities per year up to $680,000. Obviously, that means if she goes all the way and wins another national championship, she could accumulate another $680,000 per season for all of these accomplishments. So the university is gonna stick with Dawn for a while. In comparison, Gino Auriemma, his salary annually is $1.95 million, and it was renegotiated earlier this year. That release came out May the 21st, and it runs through the end of the 25 season. It's about a total, almost about a $15 million deal, retroactive to last year for Gino. So Dawn's deal trumps that of Gino Auriemma's, who is the head coach up at UConn. Wow, big numbers today to dish out from Columbia, South Carolina. There's a press conference at 5 o'clock this afternoon, and I've got a gut feeling that our friends at the Big Spur, Gamecock Central, David Cloninger, and all of those, they will be there live and ready to go to get comments from Dawn Staley publicly. We'll get comments from Raphael Esparza publicly now with MyBookie.ag. It's time, speaking of money, it's time to make some here on the JB and Goldwater Show. What's up, bud?
I can't make that kind of money, but I guess when you're the only sport that wins for the Gamecocks, I mean, you give her all the money, because last time I checked, football, basketball, men's basketball, soccer, baseball, softball.
Yeah.
The women's football team, though. I mean, you said men's football, so the women, they're crushing it.
Because I didn't know they had a women's football team. I apologize for that.
That's called soccer.
Okay.
Women's football is called soccer. MyBookie.ag is where you can follow along. And on Twitter at VSI.Sports, Raphael Esparza is going to tell you how you can put some dough in the bank, that secret bank account that you hide from your wife, and then you go out and buy some cool stuff that nobody knows about. Well, man, I look, before I want to start with baseball, but before we start with baseball, the betting side of it, I want to ask you about the check swing last night. What did you think about that call?
It's a horrible way to end a game. I mean, if you could review that, I can guarantee you they would have said no strike. Even if it was a strike, you just do not want to end a game that way. So, I mean, I understand the reasoning, but it was not a strike. You just don't end the game. It was horrible. I mean, for the books, we were like, woohoo, Giants lost, all that money's for us now. I mean, granted, we don't need an NOS team to win it, but it was a horrible, horrible way to end the game. Just like how the Eagles go for 2 points to make it a 6-point win, and they don't, and Bucks don't cover. So for the books, we were doing backflips and doing high fives and chest bumps. So it was a nice evening for us.
With the fight last week, did you guys make money on the fight last week?
Yeah, we needed Fury. Most money came in on Wilder just because how could you not pass with a guy that has heavy hands, get 260, whatever you want, 240, whatever shop you had. We won on not going the distance. Everyone thought it would probably end in the 7th to 8th round. So I can't believe it went 11 rounds. If you didn't watch that fight, how often do you see not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4, but 5 knockouts in a heavyweight fight, and it just keep on getting up? It was just easily the top 10 heavyweight fight that I have seen in my lifetime, and that's including all the Ali fights I've seen and all that. But it's easily one of my top 10.
Is boxing making a comeback, like a real comeback?
The names are, I don't know about the generation of viewingship. I think it's still an MMA sport, but there's no big names up in UFC anymore. I mean, Conor McGregor's fallen off. Khabib's gone. John Jones can't stay out of jail, whatever he's going to. So name-wise, I say yes. I think they have the bigger names marketing-wise. I mean, Canelo's fighting Khalid Plant in 2 weeks. That's a big fight. Tyson Fury is going to fight again. So I would say name-wise, yes. And I think MMA took a step backwards when bare knuckle fighting had a death. I think it was last weekend or 2 weeks before. So they took a small step backwards.
I hope it makes a comeback. I loved as a kid. That was one of our family things. When there was a big fight, you ordered it, and I got to stay up late for those. They never started. I felt like midnight, but you ordered it. Everybody sat around and watched pay-per-view.
I always watched. I remember back as a kid when I would watch Wild World of Sports when they had boxing on that. So I was able to watch some good boxing in the afternoon. I just aged myself just saying Wild World of Sports on ABC, but
Yeah.
I remember those days.
That's a good point. Yeah, absolutely. Well, it might be a wild weekend of sports. Wild weekend of sports. It is definitely a wide weekend of sports. The Red Sox and the Astros tonight. The Sox are 1.5 run underdogs, I guess, if you want to call that in baseball. Valdez and Sale. So you got the Astros and their shenanigans from years past. You got Cora as the manager of the Red Sox. He was tied into that. How do you see this series, man? Boston, we know that the Astros are one of the best teams in baseball. Boston, thought maybe they couldn't get over that hurdle, that COVID issue they had, a month and a half ago or whenever it was now. But they might be the hottest team in baseball. So you got the hottest team, at least in the American League, versus one of the best teams in the American League. This could be a classic. Yeah,
it's going to be interesting. It's going to be all-around pitching. I mean, if McCullers doesn't go for Houston in this series, that puts their starting rotation a huge step backwards. We all know about the Red Sox bullpen. It stinks. So we could see a lot of runs scored in this series. I think that's why the over at 8.5 tonight is getting a lot of love. Because Chris Sale, I mean, he only lasted, one inning his last time he's out in the playoffs. So has not looked like Chris Sale type. So this one should be interesting. I think out of all the series, 4 teams that are left, we're probably going to see the most runs scored in this series than we will in the Dodgers Brave series.
Okay. Yeah, Darren and I have talked a lot about the pitching and how some of that's been handled. It's not classic baseball. You've got a bunch of PDSs out there, and guys are going to the specialty dudes in the bullpen a little bit more often than they used to. Right now, Braves have the lowest odds to win the World Series. I haven't seen a game odd out for tomorrow, probably because there's no starting pitcher announced yet for the Dodgers. But your thoughts on Atlanta and their chances of getting through the NLCS is obviously a rematch from what we saw last year, but the Braves have home field advantage this time.
Yeah, I mean, the series price came up Dodgers minus 130, minus 135 to win the series. So I expected that. Normally, if we weren't so heavy on NL West teams, I think this probably would have been like a minus 120 because you have to think of the Dodgers injuries. They still have no Kershaw. They still have, what's his name from first base? I can't think of the top of my head. So there's some injuries on that side. I would have to probably lean towards the Braves on this one. I mean, what's the mental state of the Dodgers coming off a huge 5-game series against the Giants? I know the networks don't want the Braves in there. The networks do not want Houston, Atlanta World Series. It probably won't get good ratings with the asterisks versus Atlanta. No disrespect to Atlanta Braves baseball, but they want probably Boston. I'm sure Boston Dodgers. They want a Yankees Dodgers for good marketing. But I think the Braves pull it off. I think Braves right now, I'll take their pitching, especially their bullpen over the Dodgers.
It's interesting you say that because generally when you say, well, I'll take the Braves bullpen, everybody's like, what? But their bullpen has been really good. And Will Smith has figured it out. I mean, Corey McCartney with it, with Talking Chop pointed that out to us, Darren, earlier this week. Yeah, Smith has gotten a lot of grief and he's giving you some heartburn here and there, but guys, he's got a bunch of saves. I mean, he's been getting the job done.
Keep an eye out for Jock Peterson. I think he could be a big key factor, a big heavy bat.
You think?
A big heavy bat, left-handed, and like I said, with no Kershaw on the mound, who I have no idea what the year is. What's his stat? Can he go 5 innings? I think that's why they're a little skeptic on that. So as long as you can get Mad Max, get losses with him on the mound and beat everyone else, I think you'll sit fine.
Braves Red Sox World Series. I'm calling it now. Braves Red Sox. That'd be great for TV too. All the history of the franchise.
The Boston teams.
Yeah, well, and the Braves.
Hey, Mark wants to know why BKB has absolutely nothing to do with UFC MMA. He's totally wrong when I say about it. I'm talking about betting wise. I'm not talking about the sport itself. I just think when people see that in the limelight, they take a little step backwards on how they're going to produce their money when it comes to betting. And I know all the advertising and marketing people over at BKFC. So they agreed with me when I talked to them this week. I said, how bad was that? And they said, it's going to take a huge step backwards. And a guy from Russia died, I think maybe a month ago, swallowed his tongue in one of those bare knuckle fights. So I don't know how soon that was, but someone sent me the clip of that. So
wow.
Mark, I'm talking all betting wise, not in general of viewing ship and stuff like that. I'm talking betting wise. I think that could take a small step backwards. And there's no names. BKFC banked all their money on Paige Van Zandt, and she goes 0-2. So they have no really limelight to promote that BKFC right now.
How long have you been involved in the betting side of boxing, UFC, MMA, all of that? How long have you been doing that?
Oh, over 20. I mean, I was at UFC 10. I was at UFC 100 when Brock Lesnar beat the crap out of, was it Matt Matrone, I think it was? His face looked like ground beef when I had to interview him at the ESPN zone at New York and Las Vegas. So I've been around it a lot, especially like when we used to hold events at MGM. I mean, it wasn't sold out events yet until it really put a big steam with Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz when they were starting to get on the limelight. They pretty much carried that and stuff like that. So it's been a while, and that's why I said I think UFC and MMA need Conor McGregor because right now he's the only one that really will probably blow up pay-per-view sales.
12:49 on a Friday afternoon. You spent time with Mike Tyson before, haven't you?
Yes.
Is he? Yes. You like him? Is he a good guy?
Oh yeah. He's even funnier when he's high.
I could only imagine.
But you know what? When Mike Tyson was really fat, like when he was going through a lot of stuff, when he first started doing his show, I can't remember what the show was a couple of years ago when he was really out of shape and all that. You can tell by his face he was still suffering from a lot of depression and stuff like that. But now he's a totally different guy, especially a totally different guy than when he was in a ring. So I think he knows his demons, and I know I think he finally realized his demons are always going to be with him.
Yeah. All right, let's get to some football. Since we're short on time, Raphael, we'll ask you about just a couple of NFL games here, and then I'll get to some of the important lines out there in college football. What do you think about Vegas right now in the midst of all this Gruden stuff? They got to go to Mile High this weekend. Both Darren and I have picked them to win the game. But what do you think about where they are as a franchise now that he's gone and Rich Bisaccia is in charge?
Yeah, I have no idea how this Raider team is going to come back, react to this. They're on the road. They're at Mile High. Teddy Two Gloves is getting healthier week after week. So I just don't know how to expect how Vegas is going to turn around. Some players didn't even practice the day after Gruden got fired because they just wanted a personal day. So I want to say take Denver minus the 4. A lot of people love that because it was 3.5. But it would not shock me if the Raiders win outright and this one goes into as they just rally around each other and win. So because I'm not 100% sold on Denver's offense.
So stay away from it.
Yeah, I would say stay away, but it would not shock me if they win one for Coach.
All right, and how about Dallas up there in New England? Cowboys are 3-point favorites on the road. The Patriots are 0-3 at home this year.
I was hoping to have some weather in this game because if that is the case, I really like the under at 50.5, 51 if you can find it. I like New England. For some odd reason, I think it's going to be an ugly game. They're going to probably run the ball, control the clock, keep the Cowboys offense on the sidelines watching. I want to say take New England, but I like the under better. If there's weather involved, then I think the Patriots win.
All right, into college football we go on Twitter at VSI Doc Sports, mybookie.ag. There's so many great opportunities via the website for them to basically give you money with the money that you put in and turn around and try to make some cash. And college football this weekend, it's a sneaky slate, Raphael. These are one of the weekends when guys like you make a lot of dough because it's not real sexy like last week. A lot of young bettors, those that maybe don't know what they're doing, look at the rankings and this, that, and the other and go, oh, well, I know how this is going to go. So we're going to try to dive a little bit deeper into some of these lines that we're going to discuss. One of them is tonight, and it's the Clemson Tigers. They were off last weekend. Clemson has been struggling. This is part of our buy or sell segment with Jeff McCarriger, Carolina One Real Estate. Jeff.McCarriger at CarolinaOne.com if you are looking to purchase or sell here in the Low Country. Do they cover at Syracuse tonight? Now, before we go any further, a lot of fans in our neck of the woods like to say, oh, well, traditionally Clemson has a lot of trouble up there at Syracuse. They've played 4 games in the Carrier Dome all time. Yeah, they are 3-1. They have one loss. It was 4 years ago. But the other ones, they go up there and win. Do they win this week? They've got a bunch of problems offensively. I don't know how many of those problems are solved this week. Do they win? Do they cover?
I think they win, but they don't cover. I was hoping to get plus 14 when it first opened up, and then Clemson money came in. I mean, I know they're coming off a bye week, but man, you just look at it. It's just Clemson 0-5 against the spread this year, and not even close. It's not like they were like, a late touchdown or a late field goal and they didn't cover it. It's just offense. It's just pathetic. I think Syracuse keeps this game close. But I think in the second half, I think Clemson puts a touchdown in, and I have them winning by like 10 points, but I'll take the plus 13.5. If you can find 14, hats off to you. But I do not want my hard-earned money on the Clemson Tigers right now, especially on that offense.
How about your hard-earned money on Indiana? They're plus 4.5 at home. The over-under, and that one is a 48.5. Classic Big Ten type game here. It's also part of our buy or sell segment with our friend Jeff McCarriger. Does Indiana upset Michigan State, who is undefeated?
No, I think Michigan State stays undefeated. I'm just not sold on it. And this is a totally different Indiana team than we've seen the last 2 years when I thought Indiana's stock in football was rising. And then they had some injuries, some people left. So I think Michigan State stays perfect. Even though the number has moved a point, I say hurry up and grab 4.5. Would not be shocked if the thing goes up a little bit higher, 5.5. I think the Sparty is the way to go.
Okay. Sparty is the way to go, according to Raphael Esparza. Is LSU the way to go in covering 12 points against Florida at noon?
We just saw the best team in football in that state. The Raging Cajuns played the other night. I think they're the best football team in that state. No, I want nothing to do with LSU football, Clemson football. No, LSU. Ed Orgeron's trying to see, hey, if he can go back to USC because they're probably going to be looking for a head coach. He does not. He'll last the season. But they'll do a GoFundMe at the end of the year to try to do his buyout.
MyBookie.ag, MyBookie.ag. Pitt at Virginia Tech. Raise your hand if this one was the one you said, oh, yeah, that one might end up deciding the Coastal Division over Miami and North Carolina. Nobody said that before the season, but it could. We'll see. Pitt is 5-point favorite on the road, and Lane Stadium against the Hokies are both 1-0 in the league.
I can't figure out Tech. I had Metallica over touchdown Jesus last week, and I got burned. So I like Pitt tonight or Saturday. So that means Tech wins by double digits. It's just one of those teams that I'm totally wrong. No matter how I either fade them or bet with them. So they screwed me against touchdown Jesus. So I think Pitt wins, but so Tech wins by double digits.
This is remarkable to me. I said this yesterday to Darren. I still can't believe this is a real statistic, but for the first time, at least since 1992, I guess, Darren, when SEC expansion happened with Arkansas and South Carolina the first time.
Yep.
2 6-0 SEC East teams will play. And one of them's Kentucky in Athens between the hedges at 3:30 on Saturday afternoon. But here's the kicker with all this. The over-under is just 44.5. We know why. Georgia's defense is remarkably good, and Kentucky's, by the way, is pretty good. Here's the other remarkable number. 21.5 in favor of the Dogs with that 44 over-under. Yeah, it's strange. How do you see this sucker? Do they cover 3 touchdowns and a half a point?
They were 24 earlier in the week. And so the betting public's all on Big Blue Nation. So I don't understand why, because this game reminds me when Arkansas went there a couple of weeks ago, and look what happened on that game. So if this number continues to drop, how do you not play the best defense in college football right now? I like Georgia.
Do you like Alabama? They're heartbroken, but generally when you break Alabama's heart, they break down your door the following week. They're 17-point favorites in Starkville against Mississippi State. The over-under is 58.
I like the over. I think Alabama is going to be very upset. I wouldn't be shocked if they put up a half a century on the scoreboard. Give me the over.
I'm with you. That 58, guys, doesn't that seem...
I thought it was going to be like 60, 61, so 58 I think is a little bit low.
I like it. I like where you're at. Give me something that's not on... We've got 2 games to get to. They're both in the SEC. Give me something that's on your radar. It could be from anywhere in the world. It could be from Alaska if you wanted to be.
Wow, that's good. I want to go late Utah, Arizona State. The Arizona State's a shocking 5-1. Do you believe in the Sun Devils? You do not believe in the Sun Devils? I think we see a lot of points scored in this game. The Utes went on the road to get a big W last week. So this game is very intriguing to me. I know you'll be sleeping because it's a late game. It's a 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. You got to wake up with the girls and make breakfast in the morning. But I'm excited to watch the Sun Devils and the Utes, the 2 Utes. It should be a fun game.
Devils 1-point favorites. What's the over-under in that game?
51. I thought it was going to be like around 53. So I think there's some value on there.
How about this over-under in the SEC? Ole Miss is on the road at Tennessee. God, there's somebody. I can't. Oh, it's Lane Kiffin coming back to Neyland. I'm sure he's going to have a grand entrance into the ballpark. 100,000 people will be spitting tobacco on him and dumping their moonshine and everything else, if you've ever been there. 2.5-point favorites are the Rebels as part of our buy or sell segment with Jeff McCarriger at Carolina 1. That's not what we're talking about. Who cares about the 2.5? 82 is the over-under. 82, Raphael. They can both score a lot of points.
Yeah, what happened to college football defense? I mean, we saw a whole bunch of points scored in Oklahoma and Texas last week with Ole Miss. I mean, where did defense go in some of these big programs? Why not play the over? Some guy on the message board said life is too short. Bet the under. Give me the over. Who wants to watch an under game when I think both points or both teams can hit the 50 mark? Let's see if they can do 110. Let's see if both of them can hit 60. I like the over. Both defenses stink.
Well, both of these teams thus far stink. Vanderbilt and South Carolina at 4 o'clock tomorrow on the SEC Network. 51 is the over-under. And then I'm about to cry. The Gamecocks are 18.5-point favorites against the Commodores. Did they cover that?
I just don't understand why they were 18-point favorite. I mean, they haven't proved to me that they're 18 points. Again, I don't even care if Lionel Richie is the quarterback for the Commodores.
Lionel Richie.
So this one's going to be interesting. South Carolina does win this game. I don't know if they cover. I think they win by like 17, and you're like, why didn't they go for 2 points somewhere? But yeah, I think they win by 17. They win, but don't cover. But that'd be great if Lionel Richie was the quarterback for Vanderbilt.
I have an amazing stat. Yes, it would be. I have an amazing stat that we're going to lead off with coming up here about this game in the Big Gamecock Preview Show. On that note, we're going to let you run Raphael Esparza on Twitter. Follow him. He's a great guy, and he's really good at what he does at VSI Doc Sports, mybookie.ag. I do want to tell you, it's really I just enjoy this segment so much every week. That's why I've done it with you for 5 years. You're a great person. I know you're feeling better, and we really appreciate everything, bud.
Take it easy, guys. Have a fantastic weekend.
Thank you. There you go, Raphael Esparza with my bookie. Time for a timeout. When we return, the Big Gamecock Preview Show, very proudly presented by Motley Rice, driven by Stokes Volkswagen, served by Whiskey Jam. JC Shurburtt, Michael Flint set to join us. We'll be right back. Right here in our backyard is Motley Rice LLC, a law firm that hasn't lost its Carolina roots. The Motley Rice team fights every day for South Carolinians who were injured while traveling by plane or bus, harmed by medical drugs and devices, or burdened by dangerous auto recalls, including Takata airbags. Motley Rice is headquartered in Mount Pleasant at 28 Bridgeside Boulevard. We are honored to have Motley Rice as a sponsor for the JB and Goldwater Show and the Big Gamecock Preview Show.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes, the brave ones who risk their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Clamagore, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon.
People don't like to get stuck in traffic, stuck in the mud, stuck at work, and two others you probably don't think much about, stuck with a big medical bill or stuck with a healthcare program that doesn't fit who you are. Experience true medical freedom with Share Healthcare. More affordable, more options, user-friendly, and biblically sound. You can join right now. Explore a new way to show you care with Share Healthcare. Join us today at sharehealthcare.com. sharehealthcare.com.
This is Scott Glaze, head golf professional at the Links at Stono Ferry, located on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm inviting you to tee it up on one of the most scenic and challenging courses in the Lowcountry. Our back nine is highlighted with 3 holes that border the Intercoastal Waterway. Visit stonoferrygolf.com to book tee times and discover all that Stono Ferry has to offer. The Links at Stono Ferry is a former South Carolina Golf Course of the Year and is also home to the College of Charleston men's and women's golf teams. Come see us. We would love to have you. stonoferrygolf.com.
Rice, touchdown! He caught it in traffic. Big sack for the Gamecocks. JJ Inigbari.
Walks it up, looking for Kelly. Touchdown! Can you believe it?
JB and Goldwater presents the Gamecock Preview Show, proudly brought to you by Motley Rice. Our history makes us bold, our boldness makes history. And now, it's time for some Gamecock football.
Get the ball to Bennett, it's
Going for everything. Ellis looking for blood. Touchdown! Oh my!
This is Rodgers again to the 25, 20, 15, 10. Rodgers scores! Back to Thomas Dendy, and Dendy spins into the open, and he's on his way. It's a tie-ball game if they can get the extra point. 20, 15, 10, 5, touchdown board, second of the day.
There's never been more excitement about South Carolina football than there is right now.
I've heard all the stories of the great George Rogers out back in 1980. He made the whole nation holler. And I've seen that photograph of young Steve Tannehill up in old Death Valley signing his name on the field. Yeah, and I love the year 2001 at Bill Williams Restaurant. Oh, what else can I say? I'm just a big old car.
104 Friday afternoon, final hour of the work week, and welcome back. The Big Gamecock Preview Show, very proudly presented by Motley Rice. Causes not just cases. MotleyRice.com. If you've been burdened by auto recalls such as Takata airbags, or if you have stepped in front of a bus because of troubled times with Gamecock football, maybe you should check out MotleyRice.com as well. MotleyRice.com. They've never forgotten their local roots, headquartered right here in the state of South Carolina along the banks of Charleston Harbor in Mount Pleasant. Tomorrow, South Carolina will host Vanderbilt at Williams-Brice Stadium. Dave Neal, Deuce McAllister, and Andrea Carter will call it on the SEC Network. Todd, Tommy, and Jamar Nesbitt will call it on the Gamecock IMG Sports Network. Shane Beamer, of course, 3-3 in his first season. Clark Lee is 2-3 in his first season. 2-4 in his first season up at Vandy. Both are in search of their first SEC win. Tomorrow's win, if they can get it, South Carolina would be the 100th all-time in the Southeastern Conference, and it would come against a team that they're used to beating. They've done it 12 straight times against Vanderbilt. Lucky number 13, a baker's dozen could happen tomorrow. The State Fair is also in town. Again, a 4 o'clock kick. It is on the SEC Network, and JC Shurburtt is joining us now. South Carolina, 18.5-point favorites. We just talked to Raphael Esparza about this. JC, you and your crew over at the Big Spur have been looking deep into the Gamecock football program all week. Clearly, there has been frustration about the offense and about that Marcus Satterfield, who is the offensive coordinator, who's calling it on Saturdays. We'll get to some of Shane Beamer's comments last night in just a minute. But it has been a frustrating week. However, I think all of us are expecting to see South Carolina get back above 500 this week and get their first notch in the win column in 2021 in the SEC.
Yeah, it's a struggling bunch up at Vandy right now. You know, people talk about, you know, when new coaches come in, year zero situations, and, you know, there's very few of those in reality. This is one of them, though. I mean, they lost a ton of players, opt-outs. Derek Mason probably was there a year too long, to be honest with you, maybe several years. I was never a big fan of that hire for them. Living in Nashville at the time, James Franklin had that thing going, 9 wins back-to-back years. Was that sustainable? Probably not. But you come in and you take over a program that's at kind of its zenith, and you proceed to go 0-8 in the SEC first year. And that's what happens sometimes, I think, when you try to kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak, and you get into a program, you take over, and you want to change it, and it's in good shape. That could be dangerous. And I sort of recognize that. I took a lot of crap from like the 15 Vandy fans out on the internet because I predicted Vandy to go 0-8 in 2014. They're like, no way. They're great. You know, Mason, this. And then he compared himself to Steve Spurrier and Nick Saban at media days. And then he went winless in the SEC. And if it weren't for wins over Tennessee, and for some reason he did a great job in that one, you know, he'd have probably been gone a lot sooner. So Clark Lee has a mess. I've been looking at their personnel. They're a very, very young football team. They're just out there trying to build for the future. And this is a true year zero type of situation, which if you're wondering why in the world South Carolina is an 18-point favorite, that's why. It's just it's tough. I think the 2 wins Vandy's gotten this year have been tremendous. Beating Colorado State on the road was a good win. And then holding on against UConn, I kind of felt bad for all the kids that played in that game because everybody was like, UConn and Vandy, you know. It was a heck of a ball game, very competitive. Vandy won at the end. You know, so this group coming in is very limited, but they do have, you know, some wins. And you've got to sort of look at that, you know, because when you're a team like South Carolina that can't score and they get you in a low-scoring game and you make mistakes, you know, all it takes is 2. If you're scoring 1 touchdown on offense and you don't get a special teams or defensive touchdown, it sort of just takes 2 mistakes by your offense and defense, a pick 6 or a busted coverage, and you lose the football game. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend like this is a juggernaut coming in. I think Troy and East Carolina were probably better, honestly, than these guys. But you know, you never know when you're struggling on offense like the Gamecocks are, you know, what kind of situation may unfold on Saturday afternoon.
If Carolina beats Vanderbilt, in addition to it being their 100th all-time win in the league and their 13th straight over the doors, it would also snap a 9-game SEC losing streak. Their last win came against Auburn last year, and then they went on the next week to beat Vanderbilt as well. Beat Vanderbilt the week prior to beating Auburn, and since then they went on to lose every game until this point. 27-4 would be the all-time record, JC, versus the Doors. I found a very interesting stat. The last time, of course, that they lost was in 2008. That was the second of back-to-back. That first loss, everybody remembers. Let me make you all cringe for a second. In 2007, a 17-6 final in Columbia. That was after the Gamecocks rose to number 6 in the country with a win at North Carolina, and also upset wins that year on the road in Athens. I was there for that, and then beating Andre Woodson in 8th-ranked Kentucky inside of Williams-Brice Stadium. But that loss against the Doors in 07 started a slide of 5 straight to finish the year. A lot of people wanted Steve Spurrier gone after that moment. They really wanted him gone after he lost to Vandy again in 08, but they haven't lost since then. Here's what happened since that, though. In the 12-game winning streak, the first 9, JC, this is a fascinating stat. Average margin of victory for Carolina, 9.22 points per game. They beat them by, in those 9 contests, beat them by a total of 83 points. All right? Carolina's been sliding since 2018. Vanderbilt has too. The last 3 years, average margin of victory for South Carolina, 24.66 points, 74 total points in those 3 victories over Vandy. So obviously it's been a 12-year winning streak, but it's been blowouts the last 3 seasons in favor of the Gamecocks. Last year, Kevin Harris really got going for 171 yards in that one, and we're expecting him to probably tote the rock more tomorrow as well, JC, because his numbers have been going up carry-wise week to week, and he is 1 touchdown shy of tying Mike Davis for 8th all-time with 22.
Yeah, it was good to see Kevin Harris get in the end zone last week finally and run the ball and get some holes. I mean, his final stats were, pedestrian in the game against Tennessee, but you could see him, I guess what was it, probably 20 carries combined for 85 yards for Lloyd and Harris. That's probably on the high end of the spectrum for this year against FBS opponents. And that was the we talked about it all week, the goal line debacle. That was the shame of it. And they keep talking about, should have run it in. I think the coaching staff's been very remorseful about that this week. But, hindsight's 20/20. You talk about these last 3 blowouts. The first one, do you remember Derek Mason said during the week that the game was going to be a street fight?
Yep.
And Muschamp before the game goes, in the high-pitched Muschamp voice, if you want a street fight, just go give it to him, Al Muschamp sometimes got in that high-pitched, like intense voice. Yeah. And Carolina went out there and had a great game offensively and defensively. Bentley was on. By the way, congrats to him last night. 5 touchdowns for South Alabama.
Wonderful night.
Shy Smith caught a couple of deep passes in that when Rico Dowdle was running well. I remember that football game because there was a big rain delay. And then afterward, all the Vandy fans had gone home. The Carolina fans were still there in Nashville, and they celebrated. And I remember, in that one too, that game could have been a lot worse than it was. Carolina kind of bogged down a little bit, turned it over late. They could have scored 50. And then the game in Columbia, of course, we remember in 2019, Vandy lost its quarterback first play or first series. So just like Kentucky that year, they had to play with a backup. That game was really never in doubt. Carolina ran the football well. I think there was Nick Muse got injured in that game. Somebody got injured in that game. It was either Van or Muse, I remember, in that one. And then last year just seemed like a scrimmage. I mean, because, of course, the mayor of Nashville, Tennessee,
nasty day up there,
wasn't allowing any, fans in that stadium at Vandy. So they were the only team in the league that played in front of no fans last year at all. And so you could just hear a pin drop in that place, and the Gamecocks just, it really felt like a scrimmage or an exhibition. And then, of course, I think in that contest was the first time we really saw Kevin Harris break a big, long run for about 80 yards. And then he broke a 90-yarder the next week against Auburn, and they got called back. But that's the point where we all started kind of going because, Harris had run it pretty well against Tennessee and Florida, but we started kind of thinking, man, this guy's got more breakaway speed, at least last year, than we thought. And that kind of got him going late in that football game. So, it's a series the Gamecocks have dominated, over the years, even when Vandy's been pretty good. South Carolina's found a way to win. I remember that, Sean Elliott's lone win as the interim coach here was against Vanderbilt. So there's a long track record of success. South Carolina will lose to Vanderbilt again at some point. It happens to every team in the league, right?
Yep.
But I just don't see it happening this year. I think despite the struggles of South Carolina, this Vandy situation is truly a year zero deal. And I don't even think that they're necessarily judging the success or failure of Clark Lee's first season based on wins and losses. I think that they're just trying to kind of set a good foundation and try to build it back.
You mentioned on our program on Wednesday, JC, and we've heard this repeatedly from the coaching staff. I'm going to lump a bunch into this, and then I'm going to throw it back to you here. But fast starts. Gamecocks have gotten off to slow starts all year long. They really would like to get off to a little bit of a quicker one, which probably at some point in time is going to revolve around hitting a big play somewhere deep downfield. Perry Orth, Darren, if you remember on Monday, we asked him, well, what do you want to see this weekend in addition to a win? He said, throw the ball downfield and catch it. Because they haven't been able to do that a whole lot. Vanderbilt has been outscored in the first half this year, 126-41, and they've been outscored in the first quarter, 76-13. Oh. Maybe that goes in Carolina's way this weekend, but that's not the stat. None of you probably realize this. You will once I say it. They haven't scored a point in SEC play.
Yeah.
They're 0-2, and they've been outscored by Florida and Tennessee, 104-0.
Florida, Georgia.
Florida, yeah, I'm sorry.
They played
Florida
Tennessee at the end of the year.
Who cares? Doesn't matter. They've been outscored 104-0. That's bad. Carolina's offense has been bad, guys. That's bad. Like, bad. They're looking for their first points of the season in the SEC against South Carolina. Beamer said last night, JC, you just mentioned this. They've been remorseful, the coaching staff. And what you're talking about specifically, it's Marcus Satterfield on Wednesday and Shane Beamer last night on Thursday from Backstreet's Grill, where Shane said he, quote, absolutely could have vetoed goal line calls last weekend and probably should have. Here's the question I have. I have it for you. How much of a learning experience was that for Shane last week? Because you've mentioned this before, and I agree, and I'm all about head coaches giving their assistant coaches all the room in the world to roam around, right? Let them do their jobs. Steve Spurrier was notorious for hiring defensive coaches and saying, you go coach defense and I'll see you on Saturday, right? We all know, hey, you're on that side of the ball. I'll see you on Saturday. Make sure they look good. Sounds good. Okay. Well, but what do you think that moment last weekend did for Shane Beamer? Do you think that was a moment for him, JC, that maybe startled him enough internally to say, you know what, from time to time when my gut tells me we need to do something different, I'm just going to speak up and say, no, this is what we're going to do, and you're going to have to live and die by that decision.
Yeah, and it's a, I don't like slippery slope arguments, so I'm going to use the term double-edged sword, right? Yes, okay. So definitely that call could have been better. And definitely it was one that I'm sure Shane Beamer would like to, overrule. What you don't want to have happen though is a guy getting gun shy and conservative. Because he's, it's like a shell shock, oh gosh. What you call gun shy. And that's what the concern is. If you're a younger coach, that's kind of, and look, I don't inexperience or whatever. I'm not, I think everybody grows in their job and obviously as a first year head coach, but I'm not blaming the fact that fourth down calls haven't worked on Beamer's inexperience. It's either a good call or a bad call, and it is ultimately on him, but I don't think inexperience. I mean, there's veteran coaches that, you scratch your head about, but, so taking that aside, what you do get concerned about is, okay, you've got something dialed up. This program under Beamer is supposed to be about being aggressive, letting it all hang out, so to speak. So you don't want him. I don't want him to get gun shy on that. I think he should go for it on fourth downs, and they should run trick plays, and they should, have some fun, out there with that. And so that would be the concern. Now, in the near term. Absolutely. I think it actually helps the program and the team in the near term, because obviously we've been through 6 weeks of this, six 6 games of this offense, and there's probably some times where, somebody needs to overrule something. And so I think long term, you just hope that he continues to be aggressive and not deviate from who he wants to be as a head coach. But short term, I did think it was positive. And I want to read this too, because we all know who Connor Shaw is.
Yeah.
And this sort of, you and I, Jamie, and everybody, we've been talking about the complexities of this offense. And so I'm going to read this quote from the state newspaper. They asked Connor about Luke Doty, and he says, Luke's battling through some pain right now, but he's a soldier, and the guys naturally gravitate toward Luke. This is a complex system he is playing in. This is the kind of system I was playing in the NFL. Declarations, protection schemes, run combos, and pre-snap, post-snap coverage is a lot on a young guy. He'll be better for it. Maybe so. But again, what does this tell us? This, again, the complexity of it. I've used that word a lot. And so I take no pride in being right about that, because I've been saying that for about 3 weeks now. So have you. I take no pleasure in it, but there's the proof. You want more proof that this is a very complex system they're trying to run? There you go. So I don't know what needs to be
So what
done.
do you – well, I mean, all right, yeah, that brings you to a crossroads, right? Now you're – I don't know that they are at a crossroads internally in the locker room, but from a fan standpoint, we're on the outside looking in. You would like to think that there probably is one. You have one of two ways to go with this. You go, this doesn't work. We need to rip it up, simplify the whole thing, and let's just try to figure out what we can do moving forward from that perspective. Or, guys, we've been doing this since the spring, and we just need to press forward. I mean, which way do you go? I don't have that answer, but I could anticipate those are probably the conversations being had right now. Matter of fact, I know those are some of the conversations being had inside of that room.
Well, and the concern is this. I mean, look, you could if this starts to click and they start to score and they win some games, great. And I'll get off the podium and the soapbox about this, right? But and I would like nothing better. But I would still have concerns, because you still, in college football, you turn your players over. You're still limited with practice time during the week. It's not the NFL. I don't know of a single program around the country that's been successful implementing an exact replica with all that they put on the players of an NFL offense with all its complexities. Teams do run pro-style systems, but they're all scaled back. And I think in college football, it's important. You're a teacher first and foremost. You have to be able to teach your players how to do it. They have to be able to get it down. And again, I've seen confusion on the offensive line all year. There's been no rhyme or reason to the play calling at times. And those things all are signs of guys being confused, the two receivers in the same spot. And so when you have a system that players mentally have trouble getting down, and look, I'm not saying good offenses are all easy to learn. They're not. I mean, there are some complexities that you have on the college game. But when you're having that much trouble, with guys getting it, and then you have in-game issues with rhyme or reason to the calls, you've got a disaster in college football. And I've seen it before at other places. And so, that's kind of where we're at with it. I think you can hope for better days. I think the opponent this weekend gives you an opportunity.
Expand on that. Like you're running into JC. Luke Doty has never thrown for over 190 yards in an SEC game. I say never. It's not like he's been around here for 6 years. Yeah. I mean, we have to remember that Luke Doty is only 5 starts into his college career, 3 this year and 2 last year. This would be his 6th career start, but he's never thrown for more than 190. That happened last year against Georgia, and he was really accurate, 18 of 22 in Mike Bobo's system. This year, 69 of 116 with a pick and 3 touchdowns, 733 yards overall. So in saying all that, we know it's complex. Miscommunication has basically identified that issue for the public weeks ago. And now you get an opportunity in an SEC game at home when you've now got 3 consecutive starts under your belt against a team that's not very good. Vanderbilt defensively, to make sure that I'm correct here in my statistics, let's see, 13th in the SEC in yards allowed per game, last in passing yards allowed per game, 13th in rushing yards allowed per game, 13th in points per game allowed. So it's a perfect opportunity, as you mentioned, with all of the issues on that side for Carolina to maybe at least try to grow and gain some confidence and work out some of those kinks.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I think that, but I also thought that, they could do it against Troy. I mean, it's now Troy does have a better defense statistically than Vandy and all that good stuff. And, but look, it just depends. I mean, I think at this point, regardless of what happens tomorrow, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to go to A&M and have a better game than expected. That said, a lot of times offense is based on momentum, rhythm, confidence, that kind of thing. And if you can gain that against a lesser opponent, I think that helps you moving forward against the better opponents. I've seen it before. They're called get well games. Yep. As far as Doty's passing yards go, great if he can get over 190. And I agree with Perry Orth that I'd love to see the ball thrown down the field too. Namely to 1 or 2 receivers that I have in mind. But I'm much more concerned about, hey, Kevin Harris had a good game last week, and you look and it's 16 carries for 61 yards. Marshawn Lloyd had a good game last week, 6 carries for 24 yards. I think it sets the Gamecocks up for success moving forward if those guys in the offensive line get going and clicking and in sync. Maybe more so than what Doty does. But that said, hey, look, I'd love for like 300 in the air, 250 on the ground, and 550 and a big day, and everybody's happy and gets to go to the fair and get a chocolate-covered chili cheese dog deep fried or something. I mean, I'd love that. I would love that if everybody's happy, But that, I was in a little better mood last night. And then I look up and I see that Connor Shaw quote this morning, and it doesn't put me in a bad mood. I'm not really overly emotional about this, but it's just a reminder that, hey, this is what the players on the field are up against, when they go out there and play offense, particularly Luke Doty, every Saturday. And for the life of me, I don't understand the logic behind, hey, let's put in this big complicated system here in year one. It's almost like that. There's a sense by maybe the offensive coordinator that this is a year 0 here, that winning doesn't really matter, and that's a shame because in the other 2 phases of the game, you're set up to win. 6 or so, at least get to a bowl, get the program out of the gutter. I'm sure nobody's sitting around the building going, we're just gonna this year's just a building year. I mean, you've got veterans on that side of the ball that stuck with your program for transition, and so I don't understand the logic. To me, I would be simplifying as much as I could in order to maximize the talent I have, score as many points as I possibly can, and try to win some football games. So that's the logic there escapes me a little bit in terms of why would you do this?
Expecting the Gamecock defense to give the offense an opportunity to score early and hopefully off in tomorrow's season high 6 sacks last week in Knoxville. Although it was a horrible outcome, they started to get to the quarterback in the second half of that ball game, and they continue to play decent football, good enough football for South Carolina to win some games. A couple of other nuggets passed along going into this one. Parker White now with 328 career points. He is 2 shy from being second all-time in points scored at South Carolina. Colin Mackey is who he is approaching, and then he is 1 field goal shy of tying Elliott Fry for second all-time in field goals made with 66. He's been perfect, as we all know, thus far this year. 9 for 9, as a matter of fact. JC, final thoughts on the ball game. We're going to have about 3 or 4 minutes to get you to pick 7 games, but I want to just kind of get your final thoughts as far as everything we've discussed this week. And now that we turn the page to the second half of the season, we know the difficulty that lies ahead. So if you could summarize starting fresh, forget the 3-3, it's week 1. Starting fresh, starting a new season. How could South Carolina do that tomorrow against Vanderbilt?
Well, I mean, obviously, if and I haven't been told anything that's been going on at practice, right? So I don't know. Obviously, I think if they scaled some stuff back and sort of hit the reset button a little bit on what they're trying to ask this team to do on offense and kind of put them in a position just to go play, I think that would be positive. And I think you'll be able to tell. You'll be able to tell. I think that you can watch players on the field in all sports and understand if they're confused or not. And how you do that is you watch them when they're not confused, and then you watch them when they are. And there's a big difference. Everybody's talking about the offensive line not moving well and not being athletic enough. And that's not, none of that's true. It's like a linebacker. If you watch a linebacker, like I'll give Sherrod Green as an example. Sherrod Green's not a slow player.
Right.
But in 2018, he sure looked like one because he would take what's called false steps. He was confused. He didn't know his assignments. Years later, nobody's questioning Sherrod Green's speed. I mean, same thing with the defensive backs this year, like Jalen Foster and Cam Smith and Dickerson and Jamar Brown. I mean, those guys are moving around well because you know what? They're confident mentally in what they want to do, and they're not confused. So I would like to see that. Defensively, this is a get-well game. Carolina's given up some yards on the ground. They caught a couple of haymakers from Tennessee this past weekend on that side of the ball. Vandy's pretty awful on offense. And, this is a chance to shut down the run, work on being a dominant defense, getting that swagger back. I don't know that they've ever lost it on that side of the ball. I'm just saying, a great defensive game will help them going into a challenging situation in College Station and a big old challenge against Florida and challenge at Missouri. I mean, the defense second half of the season faces some of the best after this game, faces some of the best offensive coaches and players and systems that they'll face this year. There are a few teams struggling to score, but it's going to be a situation where Clayton White and that side of the ball, they just have to tighten up a bit, I think, given what's in front of them.
Ken Seals is known for picks. He's thrown 7 this year. Carolina looking to be more opportunistic once again this weekend on that side of the football, and they got to get better in stopping the run. Although they've only allowed 159 yards per game this year, they've allowed 220 per game in SEC contests. Vandy certainly has struggled in all phases on that side. All right, JC, a couple of minutes here to get 7 quick picks in for you. And then we'll head on to break and get Michael Flint to wrap things here in the Big Gamecock Preview Show on this Friday afternoon. Starting tonight, there was a time where the over-under of 43.5 was what you pretty much expected Clemson to at least score alone in this game. But that's the over-under now. Syracuse and the Tigers. Tigers are 13.5-point favorites, but we're just asking you to pick who wins and loses. A lot of orange up there tonight. Gamecock fans probably wouldn't be too thrilled in Syracuse. Who wins?
Last time Clemson went to Syracuse on a Friday night, they lost, and you better believe they know that. Clemson, Dabo's really good at reminding, you know. I think Clemson will win, by how much, I don't know. But I think Clemson will go out and win. Syracuse, pretty good on defense sometimes, pretty good on offense sometimes. They've been up and down, and Dino Babers has done well against Clemson, to be honest. Over the years, even when they've not been that good, they've given them sometimes a challenge. So it has to be a scary game if you're a Clemson fan, but I think the Tigers go up there and win the game. By how much, I don't know. My guess is it'll be another score that their fans look at and go, wow, we're really good, but they'll still win the game.
They're 0-5 against the spread this year, for reference.
0-5, yeah.
Yeah.
Good little nugget there.
That's a pretty big number for going up there on a Friday night, I think.
Auburn's at Arkansas at noon on CBS tomorrow afternoon. Boy, this is an interesting ball game, isn't it? Auburn comes into the game after a loss last week against Georgia. Arkansas comes in with 2 consecutive losses, one against Georgia and then the heartbreaker against Ole Miss, going for 2, failing to convert, dropping to 4-2. But did they get a win against War Eagle?
This is a critical game for Sam Pittman and Arkansas this year in terms of like how good are they going to end up being? Are they a team that's heading to Shreveport? Well, I don't guess you go to Shreveport, Birmingham, or a minor bowl at the end of the year. Or are they a team that can win 7, 8, 9 games? And it starts with this one. The concern I would have if I'm Arkansas, okay, you have a huge game against A&M, right? Your huge game against Texas. You got a huge game, Georgia, game day, you get throttled. All right, then you have that game at Ole Miss. It's a track meet. It goes down in severe disappointment, right? Played your butt off. They played their butt off in that game. How a team like Auburn, if you're not up for an early kickoff like that, they're going to get Tank Bigsby going. They're going to run downhill at you. They're going to play defense. They're going to hit you in the mouth. And that would be my concern is for this Arkansas team that's had to get up week after week after week, can they get up again? I'm going to say they will. I'm going to say they'll win a close one. And then there'll be massive amounts of complaining in the loveliest little village on the plains again. They kind of had a good start, beat LSU. Now we find out LSU's terrible. And this just feels like one of those where it's like, fire Harsin.
Yeah.
Because they love to fire people at Auburn.
So you've got Arkansas. Speaking of LSU, Florida's at LSU. Are they really screaming fire Ed O tomorrow?
They're already screaming that.
I think so, but sometimes LSU will get up to play. I mean, this series is weird, but I just don't see if LSU having trouble running the ball at times. They kind of were able to run it last week, but they got blown out by Kentucky. Florida's been an interesting case study this year. There's been a lot of games where they haven't been overly impressive to me. But then they almost beat Alabama. But then we see Alabama on the road. That kind of thing. So I'm going to go with the Gators in this one. The Ed Orgeron situation, I think, is spiraling right now. And, a lot of people I talk to, the only thing they talk about is who's getting that job.
Yeah.
So the writing's on the wall. And certainly – would be a big win for Florida, which as a program historically has gone into Baton Rouge and done pretty well.
You said Alabama's on the road. They are at Mississippi State. Generally, Alabama just comes back and punches somebody in the mouth and they get beat. This is tricky, though. Starkville is going to be happening tomorrow night, and the air raid is alive. 7 o'clock, ESPN. Does Bama get upset again?
I've been talking about this game. I think it's one where there could be some anxious moments first half, especially on defense. Bama fans rarely have anything to complain about. They're starting to complain about the defense. Does my heart good. Because, it has to be boring sometimes covering Alabama and talking about Alabama because there's never anything wrong. Well, there's something wrong now. And Nick Saban's at his best when that happens. It is an air raid attack. It is clicking better. Mississippi State has an underrated defense. I think first half you're probably going to sit there and look and go, oh, Pirates in the game against Saban, and then Alabama will pull away in the second. Alabama, as good as Mississippi State, I think, is on defense. Alabama's offense still is elite. They do a really good job with explosive plays, that kind of thing. And so I think the floodgates will kind of open the second half.
Does Georgia open the floodgates on Kentucky? First time 2 6-0 East teams are playing since the SEC expanded in 1992.
Wow. Yeah, because, they used to have Tennessee and Florida, like third game conference opener.
Yep.
Florida, Georgia never got to there. So I'm going to say Georgia wins the game again. I will say this. Kentucky, if you look at kind of when they've played the Dogs, there have been some low-scoring games recently. So Kentucky on defense has done a good job scheming Georgia up. I still think it's probably going to end up a lot like that Arkansas game, though, in like a 35-3-ish kind of deal. I have not seen anything like the Georgia defense.
Been a while.
In about 10 years in college football. So
LSU and Alabama, back in 2011. No defense in this one. Tennessee and Ole Miss at 7:30 on the SEC Network. The over-under is 416 points, and Lane Kiffin returns to Knoxville. JC, it is going to be raucous on the Tennessee River on Saturday night. Who wins this thing? This is going to be something.
Yeah, and that place can get loud. It is an underrated. We hadn't had a lot of loud moments up there in recent years. Here's the thing you got to do against Tennessee. Said it all week last week. You got to counter punch. They've started fast against everybody. Their Ole Miss defense is slightly better, but not super duper. You would never call it super duper. So they're going to struggle with Tennessee's tempo. The thing I like about the Rebels is they have the ability to score and counter, and once you can get past that initial wave and make some adjustments and you're keeping your defense rest. I don't know how either defense is going to be rested in this one. You can counter. So this is a good matchup for Ole Miss as far as, teams that want to beat Tennessee need to be good on offense, good on defense, and weather the storm. Ole Miss can weather the storm with their offense up there. It should be another big-time shootout, and I'm sure they're going to boo Lane Kiffin quite a bit.
Yeah. I think so. And finally, Clark Lee, Shane Beamer, both looking for their first win in the SEC. JC, who wins tomorrow between the Gamecock and the Commodores?
All right, so I picked it, and like I said, until the offense does better than it has, I can't really pick a big high-scoring game. 23-3 Gamecocks. I think it's a get-well game for the defense. Something inevitably will happen. Maybe late, maybe early, where Vandy will bust a little run or something, and they'll put a field goal on the board maybe. But I really, after digging into Vandy this week, talking to some people I know up there, it is a year zero situation. So it is a game that South Carolina, no matter how much they're struggling, should win comfortably.
Well, I hope you're right. JC Shurburtt, owner of the BigSpur.com. And they have got you totally covered. Dawn Staley's press conference at 5 o'clock today. They'll have you covered with that as she is receiving a new contract from the University of South Carolina. Covered last night's Hall of Fame event as well. So much to check into over at the Big Spur. Make sure you are a member there. Thank you, bud. Have a wonderful weekend. And we'll talk to you next Wednesday as Carolina at that point in time will be preparing for a trip to College Station.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. And shout out to Flint, who's following me. Can't wait to hear him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right,
we'll give old 1-9 a big shout out.
All right, Darren.
Yeah,
all right, JB. All right.
JC Shurburtt, again, owner of the Big Spur. All right, time for our final timeout of the afternoon. When we return, Michael Flint will look at both offense and defense for Vandy and South Carolina. We'll make our final picks. We'll get out of here in the next 20 minutes on the Big Gamecock Preview Show, very proudly presented by Motley Rice.
Hopefully, you won't ever need legal help for a catastrophic injury or health issues from a medical drug or device. But if you or a loved one suffers injury or loss, Motley Rice LLC is a nationally recognized law firm that is right here in Mount Pleasant at 28 Ridgeside Boulevard. Thank you, Motley Rice, for sponsoring the JB and Goldwater Show and the Big Gamecock Preview Show. Visit motleyrice.com for more. motleyrice.com.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road. You know what happens when you sell record numbers of new vehicles? That's right, we take in record numbers of local trades. Despite what the news is saying, quality pre-owned vehicles really aren't that hard to find. You just need to know where to look. Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate and on the web at stokesvw.com. We've got over 1,200 pre-owned cars, trucks, SUVs, and all at a fraction of the price when new. Every vehicle has been inspected and reconditioned, many with the balance of factory warranty. Best of all, at Stokes Volkswagen, you don't need perfect credit to get approved for a quality pre-owned vehicle. And we'll take any trade in any condition, even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. Don't forget, we'll buy your car even if you don't buy a car from us. You're going to love our pre-owned selection, I guarantee it. So come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate or stokesvw.com.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Negative trade equity financed a new loan, subject to lender approval.
Wando Power Equipment, the trusted home of Hustler zero-turn residential and commercial mowers. There is nobody more trusted in South Carolina than our friends from Wando Power Equipment. They've been providing elite commercial and residential service for over 30 years. Landscape Services have turned to their selection of Hustler zero-turn mowers like the Raptor. Bigger, stronger, faster, and the most durable Raptor Hustler has ever designed. Located on Daniel Island and online at wandopower.com. Wando Power Equipment, owned by the Price family, the home of Hustler zero-turn mowers, rentals, service, and specializing in family and friendship.
You hear me talk about Dog and Duck all the time, and there's no other place I'm going to watch my college and NFL than the Dog and Duck. They have 3 locations, Bell Hall, Park West, and Clements Ferry Road. They have specials all football season long, like $12 pitchers of their own D2 brew, $5 pints of Sierra Nevada, weekly pick'em sheets with prizes, and the best wings in town, bar none. For all your football, college, and NFL, the Dog and Duck, Clements Ferry Road, Bell Hall, and Park West.
And what you're about to see is a spectacle unto itself. Let's enjoy.
On the South Carolina Fairgrounds, a stampede this morning. Beautiful blue skies, but the forecast tonight is for a blackout.
The crowd? The crowd is about to go crazy, by the way. 80,000 people. They've sold this place out for the last 6 years in a row.
It's a complete sellout. A crowd tonight of over 85,000 strong, ready to explode, just as they do each time their Fighting Gamecocks are introduced.
This crowd, the atmosphere that's going to be in that stadium, South Carolina needs to hold on to that as long as they can.
And so this frenzied crowd ready for the kickoff.
And the rave breaks out in Columbia.
This is Patrick Davis, and you're tuned into the Gamecock Preview Show, brought to you by Motley Rice and served by my Whiskey Jam Whiskey. Go Cocks.
1:45, final 15 minutes or so here on a Friday afternoon. The Big Gamecock Preview Show, served by Patrick Davis's Whiskey Jam, driven by Stokes Volkswagen, of course, presented by Motley Rice. Other games in state tonight: Clemson is at Syracuse at 7 on ESPN. Hampton is at Charleston Southern tomorrow at 6 o'clock. The Citadel's at Furman tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. Go Dogs, go Dogs, go Dogs. And Samford is at Wofford tomorrow at 1:30. So the upstate's got a couple big ones up there in Greenville and Spartanburg. But we're down here in Charleston. Michael Flint, the pride of Mount Pleasant, the original 1-9, joins us to take a look at tomorrow's game between Vandy and South Carolina. What's up, man?
Hey, not much, guys. How y'all doing?
It's Friday. It's Friday. What do you mean, how we doing? It's Friday.
Yeah. Hopefully have a little better Saturday than last week.
Yeah, Saturday. That's right. All right, Mike, let's get right to it, man. Gamecocks obviously have a huge opportunity to not only get a win tomorrow. Their first, it would snap to a 9-game losing streak in the league, but it, as JC mentioned, would be a kind of a feel-good, or could be a feel-good type day. It's an opportunity against a team you know you're better than on both sides of the football, basically all 3 phases of the football. How to go out and not just win, but dominate, grow some confidence, and then we all know what comes next: A&M, Florida, at Mizzou, Auburn, and Clemson. So last week, the topic this week has been poor play calling, and that has landed on the shoulders of Marcus Satterfield and Shane Beamer as the head coach up in Columbia. What are you expecting to see tomorrow as this team has tried to avoid a lot of negativity and tried to just get back to work and get 2 wins shy of bowl season?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, we've looked at what, the offense has done, over the course of the season so far, the first half of the season. I think we are what we are. I think there are things that, players can improve on. Like I said, I think, one thing I would, love to see us do is take more shots down the field and take more calculated shots downfield. Don't just go, don't just say we're going to throw it downfield this time, but, let's build on things. Let's build on the quick game. Let's build on the run, utilize play action to get have multiple guys downfield, and having some options and really being calculated in how we get the ball down there and really building it and growing off the quick game and then taking our shots. I think Luke Doty would get a lot of confidence from being able to connect on some of those deep balls and just, continue to see him grow and become more confident, as we get into this tough stretch of the season. And I think that's huge for the offense, is Doty becoming more comfortable. I can see, he gets a little flustered back there. He still has only started a handful of games, but I think he panics a little bit, and didn't really see in the field, I think, the way he should. And so I hope, what we can do with this game is help him grow his confidence, have the game start to slow down a little bit for him, and be able to move the ball up and down the field, but be able to take our shots as well.
Mike, I want
that's with him. How about you?
I want to not sorry to interrupt you, but I want to read this to you because JC brought it up, and Connor Shaw last night, of course, inducted into the Hall of Fame at South Carolina, but he was asked about Luke Doty, and this was his response. You mentioned, Luke maybe at times not seeing the entire field and things like that. I want you to pair those comments with this comment from Connor Shaw, and maybe there's a little bit of an explanation as to why the game hasn't necessarily slowed down yet for the second-year freshman quarterback. Quote, he's battling through some pain right now, but he's a soldier, and guys naturally gravitate toward Luke. This is a complex system that he's playing in. This is the kind of system I was playing in the NFL. Declarations, protection schemes, run combos, and pre-snap, post-snap coverage is a lot on a young guy. He'll be better for it. Michael, he's 19, and these are NFL quarterbacks out there that have to do this stuff, guys who are 22, 23, 24 years old and beyond. This kid's 19 trying to learn an NFL offense. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, and one thing that I think is what is the complex part of it is probably the wording of everything and how plays are called. A lot of times in the NFL, it's like reading a novel trying to get a play called sometimes. And I know, like with Coach Spurrier's system, it was very, the wording was it was very simple, and everybody knew what to do based on a couple of words or a couple of things, within a play call. And I feel like the play calls are too complex and can be simplified, and that's really understanding concepts. And when you hear something, when you hear a call, every receiver knows what to do. It's a concept, and the guys know what
Mike,
to run. So I think,
Mike, can you give me an example? I don't want to age you. It's been a while since you played. I know you're old and rickety and have a cane and a walker and all that, but can you give me an example? Give me a Steve Spurrier play, and then really the language, ZX, motion right, whatever it is, versus maybe what type of language he's hearing.
It could be a formation. Could have been like be right, which is bandit right. So that's the formation you have, and it could be whatever the protection is. There'd be a protection call and then a play call. So it could be bandit right. I forgot the protections, and then which is not difficult, and then Mills. So there's a play called Mills, and every receiver knew what to do based on that one name, or like Cresser, or he had some numbers like 90 for quick game. It was like 92, 94, 96, 99 from fade. So it was simple. So it was the formation, which was pretty simple, which was not crazy common thing, and it was the motions were pretty simple calls, and you weren't calling out what every receiver had to do, like X7, Z4, wide, whatever it is, So there's some systems where you basically tell every receiver what to go do, and there's some systems that call it by name. And so I think when you start getting very complex, and you have to basically have a play call that tells every single guy what to do, that's where you kind of get lost in everything, and you start thinking too much because there's too much going on instead of having everything called out by name. So I think that's part of it. It's difficult. I mean, Coach Spurrier's system, was it complex? It very much was complex. There was one play call that you could run 3 different routes based on coverage, but it was, but the actual play was pretty simple. There wasn't a whole lot of stuff being thrown out there. Mm-hmm. And so understanding concepts instead of individual routes is that you call a play, you have a name for it, and everybody knows what to do. But it's when you have to list it out of, like, if you have the route tree, the routes are numbered. And if you have to tell everybody what to do based on number, the quarterback starts thinking too much, and then the game is just like, it's stuff's flying around like crazy. And I think a lot of what Connor's saying is accurate. I think naming conventions, the play calls, and having to really think through it and make sure you're calling the right thing, and then getting up to the line of scrimmage and trying to read a coverage, and then trying to think back of what all the receivers are doing, and having to remember numbers and then look at coverages and all that. It gets to be a lot. And I think that's exactly kind of what Connor was alluding to, and is kind of, letting the game slow down, just having an understanding where you don't have to think. Each time you hear something, you just react. You hear it, you know what to do, and then you react. And, a lot of it is just there's so much thrown at them. So, yeah, I mean, that's the difference. I don't know what the play calls are, and I could be wrong in that. But,
Sure.
That seems to be like when I hear like NFL, types of things like that, it's like play calling, and it's just too complex. There's too much going on. And so when you got guys moving all over the place, you got to remember what guys are in motion, and, a lot of those systems spell out everything for you. So I think that's part of it. And being able to feel pressure when you think less and react more, you tend to feel the pressure and not try to look where the pressure is coming from. And then your eyes aren't downfield. Then coverages are changing. They're, rotating, or they were trying to throw the quarterback off pre-snap, and then they move post-snap, and then you put your eyes back up and people are running all over the place, and then you just don't know what's going on. So that's a lot about what that is.
It's fascinating, and I get it. You don't know the language exactly that they're using, but it just I hope that gave a little bit of insight to people who look out there and are trying to figure out what in the world is happening with this offense. It certainly did me. Those that criticize the quarterback, oh my God, that guy was wide open. Why didn't he throw it to him? Well, I'm now envisioning a quarterback in Luke Doty. Not that I'm, just going to give him a bunch of excuses and free passes, but I'm envisioning, I kind of am like I'm envisioning a quarterback who's trying to figure out in his head exactly what different routes all these guys are running. And he's probably trying to make sure that the protections and these guys up front, because that's been off all year, they know exactly what's going on. And he's just not comfortable yet and being able to drop back and know exactly where everybody's going to be, because they don't know where they're going to be. That's why guys run into each other in the same routes out there at times. And while we look at the same guys blocking the same guys from time to time, they're not supposed to be. So if they don't know it and Luke's told them this is what you're supposed to do, but he can't trust that that's going to do it, I'm not exactly sure how he's supposed to go out there and be perfect. I will ask this question, though, on that. Generally, Michael, based on my limited football knowledge that I gained from you after drinking bourbon, generally, when you have something complex like this, these quarterbacks find comfort in a safety valve, right? They begin to trust one or two guys more than anybody. Have you identified somebody? I know last week the tight ends were targeted 12 times and there were 7 completions out of those targets. Have you identified one or two guys that maybe Luke Doty is becoming more comfortable with? And how about a guy like E.J. Jenkins, where he would just be a big guy standing out there? At least you can throw it to him, kind of like Tecmo Bowl.
Yeah, and I think you're seeing guys like Josh Van and Jaheim Bell starting to get more comfortable with those guys. Even some of the running backs out of the backfield, being that kind of safety valve, being able to hit the check down and try to stay, upfield. But I think Josh Van really is the main guy. And, Luke knows he can put it up there, and Josh Van's going to go up, and make a play. And I think the same with Jaheim Bell is that he knows if he takes a shot or if he puts that ball out there, that either he's going to come down with it or nobody's going to come down with it. And so, I think those two guys have become really key pieces of the offense. And I think Luke knows that if he puts that ball out there to him, that, it's either them or no one. And both guys have really proved themselves so far this year that they can make the big plays and come up, with big time plays in certain situations. So, I think, those two guys are a huge part of this offense that, it's important for Luke to kind of build that rapport. I think in some previous games before, I've noticed that, a quarterback that's got that rapport with those receivers, you know exactly what they're doing. And there's a couple of times where Luke could have made, some back shoulder throws at times, and the receiver knowing that it's going to be a back shoulder throw as in going downfield, and the DB's bailing, and the receiver knows he's not going to beat the receiver. And so the quarterback can automatically see it's going to be a back shoulder throw, in that, everybody's on the same page. Same with some goal line type situations where the DB kind of bails in that fade window and you put it at the front pylon, but knowing that, you're trying to get a fade, but knowing that DB's bailing quick. So you put it front pylon. And I think that's the kind of rapport I think Luke needs to get to, for this team to have a little more success on offense. And I think he's getting there with these guys, but I do, with the foot, with the injury and, the foot not being as mobile and being able to utilize his full skill set is kind of, hampering them a little bit. And, one thing I say is, looking at you hear the word NFL offense. Well, not real sure what an NFL offense is anymore, because it seems like everybody's in the shotgun. You got quarterbacks running like they do in college. So I think that term is kind of, need to evolve a little bit. And I think it's more of, you hear the NFL offense, I think it's the complexity of it and the naming conventions they use and some of the, little added nuances and stuff like that. But, it is kind of a term now that it's like, it's just kind of offense in general.
I couldn't agree more. Michael, real quick, we'll have 2 minutes to make some quick picks here between you and Darren and myself. Since the start of the Georgia game, Kevin Harris has 55 carries for 179 yards and a pair of touchdowns, both scored last week. All the other backs combined, 38 carries. So it's increasingly more and more going towards Kevin Harris, I think rightfully so. Last week, I think they did discover a couple of different runs as part of the run game that seemingly are working better. What do you expect to see? Quick 30, 45-second answer here on that tomorrow against a pretty bad Vanderbilt defense.
Yeah, I think a little more diversity in our run scheme, kind of opening up how we do things with guys, not really you try to utilizing that zone blocking scheme, but, kind of moving guys around, having guys pull even with play action type, play action plays is really trying to throw that defensive line, those linebackers off, make them think it's run. And, and we're pulling out and bootlegging and throwing the ball, stuff like that. Just having some diversity in our run scheme to really keep, the defense guessing on what's happening, keeping those linebackers on their toes, putting the defense in bad position, rather our offensive linemen being put in bad position. Let's put them in position to be successful and give them, have the right play calls where these guys can be successful, because we know this line can do it. It's just putting it all together. And I think a lot of it comes down to making sure that we're in the right play and setting these guys up for success and putting these guys in the right situation in the right places to have success.
Michael Flint, 2:01 on a Friday afternoon. Mike, before we let you run, you and Darren and myself will pick 7 games starting tomorrow at noon, Arkansas and Auburn on CBS. Who you have, Mike?
I've been riding the struggle bus on these picks of late, man. I was hot and then just fell off. But this is a tough one for me. I think Arkansas gets back on the winning train. I think Arkansas really has a good team. I think they got good chemistry, good leadership. I'm going to go with Arkansas.
It's been a tough couple of weeks for Arkansas, but this is a physical team that will be able to manhandle Auburn. I don't know how much the spread will actually be, but I like Arkansas back on the right track.
I think it's another close one. Sam Pittman's got magic, man. He's going to get these guys going. He'll get them going. They'll win a close one. Auburn's going to be in it. But I'm with both of y'all. I think Arkansas gets the win. Florida's at LSU. I mentioned to Darren yesterday, either LSU is going to find lightning in a bottle and they're going to blow the doors off Florida and everybody's going to be left scratching their heads again, or Florida's going to walk into Baton Rouge and they're going to tear that whole thing apart, starting with Ed Orgeron. Who do you have here?
Oh, this is a tough one because, looking at this Florida team, I think you just don't know what you're going to get week in and week out. But I just think LSU it's not getting any better for them. I think there are going to be changes at the end of the season. I'm going to go with Florida.
There will be changes at the end of the season, pretty much regardless of what happens in this game. I like Florida. I like them in a closer game, though. I don't think Florida runs away and hides. I do like Florida to win.
Yeah, I like Florida to win, too. I think Florida wins by at least 2 touchdowns. Kentucky is at Georgia, Mike. Georgia looks almost unstoppable right now. Over 3 touchdown favorites at home against the Wildcats.
Yeah, Kentucky just keeps coming out and they keep winning. They're in a lot of close games. They've played a lot of tight games, but I don't think this is one of those. Yeah. I think Georgia's probably the top team in the country and blows out Kentucky.
Yeah, there's a reason this spread is what it is. I don't think Kentucky can keep this thing close for the entirety of the game. Maybe it's a slower start if Kentucky can maintain possession of the ball and keep Georgia off the field for a little bit. In the end, it's a 3-touchdown game.
I agree. Yeah, I like Michael. I like what you said. They keep finding ways to win, but they sure as hell aren't going to do that tomorrow. Georgia wins between the hedges. Alabama is at Mississippi State. I'll lead off with this one quickly. I think Bama is going to be punched in the gut early, but they'll calm down and they'll win. It's a night kick over in Starkville. They're going to be really fired up and drunk over there and ringing all those bells and all that stuff. But Bama will find a way to make a comeback, Michael. They'll win the game.
Yeah, I think Bama wins. Coming off that loss, I think they've had a tough week this week. A lot of back to reality type moments over there, and I think Alabama wins.
I think they win comfortably, and I don't think it's ever close. I mean, I would love to have been in that locker room with the week of practice. I'd love to see what type of adjustments were made and how Saban and company treated those guys and got them back in the right spot.
Yeah,
I agree.
He probably dropped a D's nuts joke or two throughout the week.
I don't know. I don't think he was laughing very much this week.
He probably told him they reminded him of D's nuts.
Or that.
Oh, good Lord. Thank the good Lord, Pete. Clemson and Syracuse play tonight at 7 o'clock on ESPN, Mike. They're in the Carrier Dome. They've lost up there on a Friday night before. That's their only loss in this series. Do they lose tonight? Is a lot of orange in upstate New York. Who wins?
And they had a close one up there, I think, a couple years ago. It's just you don't know what it is about it up there, but I don't think Clemson loses this. I'd be shocked, but seen a lot wilder so far this year. But I'm going with Clemson.
Clemson's going to win this game. I think Clemson covers. I think it'll be the first time they actually cover the spread. The week off for them, a week to prepare. They're going to have some issues with Syracuse on the ground, but that's the strength of that defense. I think they win. I think they cover.
I don't think they cover. I think they win. I think that Darren's famous line, I'm going to use it right here. You are who you are. And right now, Clemson ain't covering anything, and they still got a long ways to go. But they do win tonight at Syracuse. Ole Miss at Tennessee tomorrow in Knoxville. That place is going to be magical. I don't know why they didn't wait to use the black uniforms against their own coach and Lane Kiffin. Who knows? Going to be a lot of points, Mike. The over-under in this game is 82. Who wins it?
I think there are a lot of points, and I think at the end of it, I think Ole Miss is just too good offensively. It could potentially be a shootout. I think it's one of those games that Ole Miss could potentially just walk the dog, or Ole Miss could be in a shootout with them. But I think Ole Miss wins it.
I've been going back and forth on this one because, like JC said, and he is dead on, you got to be able to withstand the punch from Tennessee, and you got to be able to rally back against them, and Ole Miss has that. They also have a coach who can make things about himself every now and then and kind of tie things up. I'm going Tennessee. I've been going back and forth all week in my head. This is the one where I was really waffling. Somehow, some way, I think Tennessee wins this game. High scoring, very high scoring.
To both of y'all's points, Tennessee gets off to a fast start, and we've seen it throughout the year, and then they kind of fade. Ole Miss doesn't fade. Ole Miss scores, and they score, and they score, and they keep scoring. And after Lane made that Alabama game about him, get your popcorn ready, and then he went and got on the headset and said, hey, y'all need to score. So I just said something really stupid. He won't say anything stupid tomorrow night. He'll just prove it with his football team. Matt Corral's going to have a big night, and they beat him on Rocky Top. I think Lane Kiffin goes back and ticks off that fan base even more, and they try to burn his house down again and all that type stuff. But I think Ole Miss wins. Finally, South Carolina, Vanderbilt, the two worst teams in the league, get a chance to go play each other tomorrow at Williams-Brice Stadium. Michael, Carolina's lost 9 straight in the SEC.
Oh, it's just tough to hear the two worst teams in the league. Goodness gracious. Never thought we'd be there, but hey, you got to start somewhere. But I think South Carolina comes out and puts some points. I really like this defense. It's a blue-collar defense. Do more with less. I think these guys have really embraced Coach White's system. I think the defense does really well and kind of carries the offense here. But I like South Carolina in this one.
I'm going to go with the Gamecocks. I debated Vanderbilt. I really did. I know what the line is. How can you not? How can you be fully confident, regardless of year zero, as JC put it, regardless of how bad Vanderbilt is? How can anyone be fully confident that Carolina goes out and wins? This game, it's a chance to get right. I said it after the Tennessee game. I thought the second half was a building block for Carolina. I'm more positive about Carolina than the entire fan base coming off that game and the play calling decision. It's a chance for Carolina to really build some momentum, and they don't do it, but they win 17-3.
Yeah, I think they cover the 18.5 tomorrow. Vanderbilt's not good. The only way that they don't is if they can't get out of their own way, and we've seen them not be able to do that from time to time. But at the same time, I think that tomorrow is a good day for South Carolina. I think it's something like 27-6, 30-6. It's a nice final. It's a feel-good type game, and hopefully that can continue. But Carolina will get their 100th all-time win in the SEC against the Vanderbilt Commodores inside of Williams-Brice Stadium. Michael, on that note, we're going to let you run. We kept you 9 minutes too late. The check is in the mail, and I'll give you a call tonight in the middle of the Clemson game and the Red Sox game.
What about the high school football game?
Oh, yeah, and Darren's game. I forgot.
That's right. Hey, I've been watching.
Yeah, he's doing a fine job up there. Very talented individual. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, well, y'all have a good one.
There you go. Michael Flint, former wide receiver at South Carolina. Well, we'd be able to get out of here at 2 o'clock, y'all, on Friday afternoons. If JC could scoot his butt along when it comes to making picks, we're going to start pulling his JB and Goldwater credentials. No, we won't do that to you. Thanks to Michael, JC, and Raphael, and Darren, of course.
Thank
you
you.
all have a wonderful weekend. Thank you to Motley Rice. We're presenting the Big Gamecock Preview Show, the JB and Goldwater Show. It's going to be a wonderful weekend for sports. Wow. When we come back, Carolina will have won. The Braves will be 2-0 in the National League Championship Series. The Red Sox will be 2-0. It's going to be a wonderful Monday. I can't wait to see all of you then. Wes Mitchell will be joining us, amongst others. Perry Orth. Thanks to all of you that watch and listen to our program. It means a lot. Have a great weekend. We'll see you on Monday. The JB and Goldwater Show, very proudly presented by Motley Rice and driven by Stokes Volkswagen.